Chapter 1621. In the middle of the night, Li Xian and Zhang Zizi sneaked to Jiang Yingying's apartment. Originally, Jiang Yingying lived in the staff condominium. Old Master Jiang wanted to take care of his granddaughter's daily life and make it a habit. Nowadays, young people only know how to order takeout every day, which is especially unhealthy. But after Jiang Yingying transferred to number 60 high school, she begged him to move out and choose an apartment closer to number 60 high school. Of course, this was mainly due to Jiang Yingying's own selfishness. She had wanted to block Wang Ling on his way to school. Jiang Yingying had read countless shonen manga with the theme of youth on campus, and almost all of them had similar scenes. For example, a man and a woman would meet on the way to school, and because they were late, they would bump into each other, and because of this indescribable fate, they would develop feelings for each other. Every time Jiang Yingying thought of this, she couldn't help blushing. She held her face in her hands, patted her slender legs, and lay on the bed, daydreaming. She felt that if there was such a plot, it must be very romantic. However, in fact, if they really ran into Wang Ling, it would definitely not be that romantic. It was obvious that this was the scene of a car accident. For Jiang Yingying, the backlash from colliding with Wang Ling was no different from being repeatedly run over by a heavy truck weighing dozens of tons. And then, there was no then. There were all kinds of liquids on the ground except for Jiang Yingying. However, it was also cute for a young girl to keep fantasizing. Jiang Yingying didn't disappoint either. Ever since she had moved to the apartment near number 60 high school, she hadn't run into Wang Ling even once. But she didn't believe it, and still got up early every day to wait for him at the gate. And Wang Ling had already seen through Jiang Yingying's plan. He felt that Jiang Yingying was very troublesome, even more so than when he had first met Lotus Sun in the first semester of high school. As the saying goes, there is no harm without comparison. Now that he had Jiang Yingying as a template, Wang Ling instantly felt that Lotus Sun was easy to use. In comparison, Lotus Sun was much more mature and sensible than Jiang Yingying. Most importantly, Lotus Sun would now take the initiative to share some of his worries, and all he had to offer was a few insignificant enchanted white rabbit creamy candies, as well as being secretly liked by her. For Wang Ling, this seemed like a free deal. In any case, he couldn't really fall in love with her, so what did it matter? Not to mention now, it would be impossible in the future. But now, he didn't have the slightest bit of interest in her. That's right, not the slightest bit. He had raised the same flag in his heart countless times. Including the last time he went to the Palm Cliff to save Lotus Sunday. In the end, Wang Ling summed it up in 6 words in his private diary in the space: strong classmate affection. When Li Xian and Zhang Zijin agreed to meet under Jiang Yingying's apartment, it was 6:00 p.m. on Thursday, December 24th. The two of them checked the time with their phones. Why don't you just sneak in through the back door? Brother thief, we have to abide by the laws of the modern world. Heh, last time you smashed the door with a meteorite and said it was an unstoppable force. Because of this, I was deducted a little. Therefore, he had to be careful now. Don't cause unnecessary trouble. Okay, I'll listen to you. Zhang Zizi shrugged helplessly. Just as he was about to enter the apartment, the security guard at the door suddenly stopped him. Excuse me, what do you do? The old security guard had never seen their faces before, and felt that Li Xian and Zhang Zizi's gazes were sneaky. Li Xian admitted that he didn't have much experience in this area. He had traveled a lot, but he had very few opportunities to sneak into a girl's boudoir. The last time he had accidentally appeared in Old God's house, which couldn't be considered a sneak, but was just an invitation from Old God. However, Old God, who had a guilty conscience, had hidden him, and in the end, it had led to a huge misunderstanding and a huge blunder. Thus, Li Xian was actually a little resistant to going into a girl's boudoir. Not only was he resistant, he was also a little traumatized. Zhang Zizi, on the other hand, was much more experienced in this area. In order to understand modern thief methods, he had finished the Detective Conan series not long ago, and had mainly watched the parts about Monster Thief Kid. Naturally, he knew the importance of disguise. Thus, Zhang Zizi very naturally took out his ID from his pocket. This was the temporary consultant's ID that anti-pickpocketing unit leader Kong Feng had given him, and it even had the police station's official seal on it. Zhang Zizi snickered. Sir, we are the consultants of the anti-pickpocketing unit. We mainly came to visit your community to see if there are any loopholes. We'll be out soon. The old man looked at Zhang Zizi's shifty-eyed look and felt that he was not a good person. He took a photo of the ID and seemed to send it to a friend who knew more about this area. After confirming that there was no mistake, he opened the gate. Then you can go in. You two have worked hard. The first level was finally passed smoothly. Li Xian secretly breathed a sigh of relief. After all, it was Zhang Zizi. His experience as a godly thief and his big heart and reaction ability, which had been cultivated by long-term work in this area, helped him in the end. The next part was the most exciting part of the competition. Pick the lock. In the modern cultivation world, the lock of a cultivator's house was also very special. When inserting the key, one had to recite a spell in his heart to open the restriction in the lock. Otherwise, the alarm would immediately sound. Before coming here, Zhang Zizi had specially studied it. It sounded very advanced, but in Zhang Zizi's eyes, it was actually child's play. It was just a method left over from ancient times, and it was a simplified version. When he was robbing tombs, he didn't know how many tomb locks he had picked, and the restriction in those tombs was much stronger than this one. If he missed one step, he would die without a burial place. When they arrived at the door of Jiang Yingying's house, Li Xian looked a little nervous. Should I go and keep watch, Brother Zizi? No need. It's just a lock. It'll be done soon. Zhang Zizi snickered. By the way, the skill of picking locks was taught to me by a teacher. Isn't picking locks the best skill of a godly thief like you? I think I'm very good at it, but that person is better than me. Zhang Zizi snickered. In the beginning, I could pick locks with only a knitting wool. But that person picked the lock with his mind. That's a strange person. Li Xian nodded and asked, who is this person? Do I know him? There were only a few famous people in ancient times, and he had a lot of experience. He always felt that if Zhang Zizi knew someone, he might also know him. Sometimes, the communication between people of the same level was so simple and unpretentious. It was like WeChat moments. Sometimes, you would find that your friend liked another friend's post, and then you would know that the two people actually knew each other. I don't know if you've heard of him. Zhang Zizi said, his surname is Xiang, and his name is Xiang Yi. Chapter 1622. The most famous godly thief of the immemorial era was none other than Zhang Zizi. However, other than Zhang Zizi, there were also other immemorial era experts that could be ranked. Zhang Zipei was the first godly thief in those days. The second person behind Zhang Zipei was John Doe, who was known as the Ghost Walker. As the name suggested, because no one knew this person's name, he was called John Doe. Of course, there was also a saying that this person was actually called Wu Ming, but later, his name disappeared inexplicably. Li Xian once had a face-to-face encounter with Wu Ming. This person was petite and his face could not be seen clearly. His breath was wrapped in layers of secret bandages, airtight. He was a person who hid himself very well. Therefore, at that time, some people also guessed that John Doe's real identity was a little girl. And at that time, it also caused a stir. Do you know John Doe? At this time, Li Xian couldn't help but ask curiously. Is there such a person? Zhang Zipei raised his eyebrows and then shook his head. She is the second godly thief in your world. You don't know him? Li Xian was surprised. Oh, the ranking is given by others. The competition for the first and second place is just empty talk. Zhang Zipei snickered and said, I focused on business performance in those days. Who would look at the ranking? Zhang Zipei's words were actually quite reasonable, which made Li Xian speechless for a while. While they were talking in a low voice, Zhang Zipei suddenly twisted the door handle and opened the door. Done. So fast. For me, this score is not enough. Zhang Zipei sighed and said, I have to practice more later. The main reason was that the lock core of the modern cultivation world was too simple, almost brainless. Zhang Zipei was used to picking high-end locks, so when he encountered these modern locks, he often thought the problem was complicated, which delayed the time of picking the lock. This was like a high-level player predicting the position of a low-level player. You would think that the low-level player had good body movements, so he could attack and predict crazily. But the opponent walked in a straight line. And you? All your skills, so Zhang Zipei took 3 minutes to pick the lock of Jiang Yingying's house. This was a humiliation to him. But in the eyes of a layman like Li Xian, who only knew how to use meteorites to smash the door, it was already very powerful. It would be great if I could see my master again in my lifetime. After opening the door, Zhang Ziden could not help but mutter softly. That god called Xiang Yi? He knows a lot more than just picking locks. But if it's a lock of this level, he can open it in the blink of an eye. Zhang Zizi's eyes were full of admiration, showing his respect for Xiang Yi. This aroused Li Xian's curiosity. Because he rarely saw Zhang Zipi reveal such an expression. With his experience, there was no way he wouldn't know those famous ancient powerhouses, so he thought that Zhang Zipei was making up some story to trick him. But now, it seemed that these things were all true. In the past, Li Xian would not have dared to imagine raiding a high school girl's apartment at night. No matter what, he was still a modest gentleman. He would never do something that would offend a young lady. It was ungentlemanly behavior. He didn't expect that the persona he had maintained for so many years would be completely shattered on this day. For a moment, Li Xian's heart became somewhat complicated. The apartment where Jiang Yingying lived was relatively small, only about 50 square meters. But although it was small, it had all the essentials. It was a single room. Every corner of the room was light pink, full of the heart of a young girl. At first glance, it was obvious that it was a girl's apartment. As soon as he entered the door, Zhang Ziden grabbed a surveillance camera in front of him at lightning speed and covered it with a seal. This was a surveillance camera specially installed by Marshal Jiang to protect his granddaughter's safety. It was directly facing the door. Fortunately, Zhang Ziden reacted quickly and directly covered the camera with a seal. The picture taken by the surveillance camera was temporarily affected by the magic effect and froze at the scene where the door was not opened more than 10 seconds ago. No wonder he is Brother Zizi. Li Xian exclaimed in his heart. He followed Zhang Ziden carefully, trying not to make any sound. Because the room was quiet, and Jiang Yingying seemed to have fallen asleep. What time did she sleep? It was only 6:15 in the evening. Weren't the young people in the cultivation world the new human beings who advocated sleeping with someone and getting high? Li Xian instinctively sensed that something was wrong. Brother Zizi, the situation seems to be a bit, don't talk so much. The two secretly established a team channel to communicate with each other through the voice-transmitting spell. Zhang Ziden frowned and stuffed a slippery thing into Li Xian's hand. This is? Li Xian looked at the thing in his hand and was greatly shocked. Silk stockings. Zhang Ziden said. Silk stockings. What do I want silk stockings for? Of course you want to wear it on your head. It can cover up a little, Zhang Ziden said calmly. But you stealing her silk stockings is a bit, I have no choice. Just put up with it, brother. After saying that, Zhang Ziden couldn't help but laugh. Besides, how can you say that you steal from a cultured person? This is clearly stealing. Li Xian was speechless. He was an honest man. It was also the first time that he had done such a shady business. He was extremely nervous in his heart. He had always used meteorites to solve problems. After feeling that the situation in the room was not good, he immediately became nervous and didn't know what to do next. After all, this kind of sneaky situation was not Li Xian's home field. His mind was blank. Staring at the silk stocking in his hand, he finally gritted his teeth and put it on according to Zhang Ziden's instructions. On the other side. Without saying anything, Zhang Ziden took out his cell phone and took a photo of Li Xian. Li Xian, Brother Zizi, what are you doing? Zhang Ziden, just a souvenir. Li Xian, what souvenir? Why don't you use it yourself? Zhang Ziden laughed again. I'm experienced and don't need these things. You are a newcomer, so of course you have to use it. Besides, you are very lucky today. Li Xian didn't take it. What do you mean? Zhang Ziden, this silk stocking was used by Miss Jiang. Li Xian knew that he had been tricked by Zhang Ziden. He was so angry that he immediately took off the black silk stockings and threw them on the ground. This is King ridiculous. At this moment, Zhang Ziden and Li Xian suddenly heard some noise at Jiang Yingying's door. Someone is coming. Let's hide first. Zhang Ziden reacted quickly and immediately dashed toward a room with Li Xian. Li Xian was purely dragged away by Zhang Ziden. When he entered the room, he was shocked. Because the place where Zhang Ziden took him to hide was Jiang Yingying's bedroom. At this moment, Jiang Yingying looked very tired and was sleeping with her head buried in the quilt. Li Xian immediately felt uncomfortable. Why are we hiding here? The place is so small. Where can we hide? Zhang Ziden made a shushing gesture and then winked at Li Xian. The two of them quieted down at the same time and vigilantly looked outside the door with the X-ray vision technique. At this moment, the doorknob of Jiang Yingying's apartment was twisted open by another hand. Chapter 1623. Kwamiya Ryoko didn't know what it was like to squeeze 4 people under a bed. But now she knew, because Jiang Yingying's bed was not wide enough, it could only fit 2 adults at most. So the situation under the bed was like this. Li Xian and Kusakusa Shigeru were lying at the bottom, which was the first layer. Zhang Ziden and Kwamiya Ryoko were lying on their backs. The scene was so beautiful that no one dared to look at it directly. The 4 of them had decided one after another not to tell anyone about it. Senior Li Xian. What are you doing here? Kwamiya Ryoko didn't know who Zhang Ziden was, but she knew Li Xian. She had heard that Li Xian was sent by Lotus Sun and also a great hero who had helped the Kwamiya family through difficulties. Therefore, she respected Li Xian very much. She didn't expect that Li Xian's behavior today would surprise her. Li Xian's face was red. Although he had thousands of reasons to explain that things were not what Kwamiya Ryoko thought, he now knew that his image in Kwamiya Ryoko's eyes had been ruined. No need to explain, Senior Li Xian. I understand, Kwamiya Ryoko said. Li Xian. In fact, Kwamiya Ryoko's current situation was not very good. Because Kusakusa Shigeru was under her, she always felt that her upper body seemed to be particularly crowded. Shigeru, don't raise your upper body, Kwamiya Ryoko secretly transmitted her voice. Kusakusa Shigeru replied innocently, Miss, I really didn't raise my upper body on purpose. In an instant, Kwamiya Ryoko suddenly understood. She seemed to know something and gritted her teeth. Are you giving me a hint? Or showing off? No. No, miss. Kusakusa Shigeru was helpless. She clearly didn't raise her upper body on purpose, so it was not her fault. But the current position did make Kwamiya Ryoko feel uncomfortable. Kusakusa Shigeru felt very guilty about this. After careful consideration, she secretly transmitted her voice back, then, Miss, shall we change positions? Anyway, you are flat, and it will be more comfortable down there. Kwamiya Ryoko instantly clenched her fists and pinched Kusakusa Shigeru's buttocks. If you dare to make a sound, you will die. Miss. Kusakusa Nakamura blushed. She felt wronged, but at the same time, she felt comfortable when Ryoko pinched her. It looked like he had used a lot of strength. However, she was at the original infant stage after all. Actually, the pinch did not hurt at all. Instead, it was very comfortable. It felt like acupuncture. Ryoko Kamiya pinched Kusakusa for a while and found that Kusakusa was enjoying it. She suddenly felt uncomfortable. She pinched Chun Chao's face hard and said fiercely, I'll teach you a lesson when we get back. At this moment, Jiang Yingying's room was completely silent, and the door opened again. It was a strange aura, which he could tell from the result of his spiritual sense perception. The 4 people under the bed had never seen this person before. Kiyomiya Ryoko saw the appearance of the person through the shared vision of the spirit ghost in the corner of the room. This person's face was covered, and from his figure, he was a man with a strong physique. There was a hint of wretchedness in his temperament. One look and you could tell that he was not a good person. True enough. Just as Kiyomiya Ryoko made this judgment, the wretched masked man took off his mask. He was plain-looking, the kind of face that could be drowned in the crowd at first glance. The only distinguishing feature is a hairy black mole on the chin. He seemed to be talking to someone loudly, and he didn't seem to be worried that Jiang Yingying would be woken up. I didn't expect high school girls to be so gullible. Boss, don't worry. I'll take her back for you. After saying this, Ryoko put her hand on her forehead. Fortunately, Lotus-san had called her and asked her to come over and take a look. This girl was too worrisome. Without the slightest precaution, she would be swallowed alive when she fell asleep. The scrawny man came to the bed in a few steps, lifted the quilt, and found that Jiang Yingying was sleeping soundly. For a moment, he was stunned by her sweet sleeping posture. After a few seconds of silence, the scrawny man swallowed. Boss, this Miss Sun is too beautiful. It would be a pity to kill her. When the person on the other end of the line heard this, he couldn't help laughing. This is the last one. After this one, we won't have to work for the rest of our lives. It doesn't matter. Anyway, in order to compete with others, this girl easily believed my folk prescription that can raise her combat strength in a short time. In the end, she dug a hole for herself. It's still early, you can use her. Okay. Okay. Thank you, boss. Is half an hour enough? I want you to bring her over at the appointed time. Enough, enough. The scrawny man nodded repeatedly, wiping his saliva as he spoke. When the 4 people under the bed heard this, they instantly understood. It turned out that this was another group of people who had mistaken Jiang Yingying for Lotus-san. The corners of Kiyomiya Ryoko's mouth twitched. In fact, she didn't feel that Jiang Yingying and Lotus-san were very similar, especially after getting to know the 2 of them and becoming familiar with their personalities. Kiyomiya Ryoko wouldn't have the illusion that they looked very similar. Including the silver-skinned man from the last time, this was already the second wave of people who had mistaken her for someone else. This man, as well as the man among the aliens, could it be that all of them were blind? At that moment, the scrawny man let out another sinister laugh. Miss Sun, I'm sorry to have offended you. Today, I offer my hundreds of years of virginity to you. He was just about to throw himself onto the bed. At that critical moment, Li Xian's Zhang Ziden had already teleported behind him and grabbed his shoulders from each side. Then, a crisp sound like firecrackers rang out from the man's left and right arms. Li Xian and Zhang Ziden both held back and didn't directly tear off his arms. Otherwise the splattering blood would dirty Jiang Yingying's room. They simply shattered the bones in the man's arms with Qi Jin. Their actions were so fast that Kiyomiya Ryoko was flabbergasted. When Kiyomiya Ryoko came out from under the bed, she felt goosebumps all over her body when she saw the scrawny man in front of her. Pervert, too perverted. Junko, go. As Kiyomiya Ryoko's female bodyguard for so many years, from a woman's point of view, Kusakusa Shigure seemed to be much more ruthless than Li Xian and Zhang Ziden. She opened her claws like an eagle and instantly grabbed the scrawny man's vital part. A painful scream rang through the whole room. This move, separating yolk and egg white hand, was her unique skill to defend herself from perverts. Li Xian and Zhang Ziden felt the pain just by looking at it. Perhaps the scrawny man's scream was so shrill that it finally startled Jiang Yingying, who was in the deep water. Her eyebrows twitched slightly, and then she slowly opened her eyes. Right in front of her window. Including the scrawny man, who was foaming at the mouth and being carried by Li Xian, there were a total of 5 people. They formed a circle around her bed and stared at her with eyes that they thought were friendly. The next day, Jiang Yingying was sent to the hospital for psychological treatment. Lying on the bed next to her was Yi Jiang, who hadn't fully recovered yet. Chapter 1624. Wang Ling heard that when Jiang Yingying had been sent to the hospital, her face had been black and blue and her hair had been a mess. She was still wearing her pajamas, and she kept twitching as if she was possessed. As the initiators of this incident, Jimir Yoko, Li Xian, and Zhang Zipei also felt guilty about what had happened. Who knew that this little girl would have the guts to move out alone, but in the end, she was so timid. That night, Jiang Yingying was sent to the hospital. Very quickly, Wang Ling received a text message from Lotus Sunday. There weren't many words in the message, so it was easy to understand. Lotus Sun was blaming herself. Because she was the one who sent Kwame or Yoko, she did not expect things to turn out like this. Looking at this message, Wang Ling typed a few words, then deleted them again. In the end, he didn't send anything. He didn't know why Lotus Sun had changed a lot recently. She was very careful in everything she did, and no matter what she did, she seemed to think from his point of view. In Wang Ling's view, this was just a trivial matter. The main culprit was the thousand-faced man who had been plotting behind the scenes and had nothing to do with Lotus Sunday. Jiang Yingying only resembled Lotus Sun a little, but the truth was that if you knew both of them at the same time, the difference between them was really huge. Impatient and quiet, stubborn and flexible, childish and mature, a string of words instantly appeared in Wang Ling's mind to describe the feelings these two people gave him. On the other side, in an open area in the northern suburbs of Songhai City, a glass elevator leading straight to an underground laboratory suddenly emerged from two platforms on either side, accompanied by a rumbling mechanical sound. Several men in black suits and sunglasses followed an old woman with fluffy hair into the elevator. Her hair was white, and there were crow's feet at the corners of her eyes, but her complexion was excellent. She looked like an elegant grandmother. After entering the glass elevator, the old lady squinted her eyes and asked, "Is Shouchong still resisting?" "Right now, he's wholeheartedly trying to open the door to infinity, but he didn't expect us to beat him to it. Now, he is still a distance away from the final step, and we are only a little bit away from success. He would never have thought that we would be able to enter the secret realm from the back door. If he had a brain like that, Master Tianji wouldn't have expelled him back then," the old woman said with a smile. After the glass elevator descended to a certain coordinate, it was transferred to the encrypted channel. In order to ensure the confidentiality of this underground laboratory in the northern suburbs, there was a huge maze above the laboratory. The maze would change every day. Only by entering the correct password would the glass elevator enter the maze's exit and successfully reach the underground. This underground labyrinth was the masterpiece of the old woman. Her name was Lu Renfeng. Her Taoist name was Lady Feng Chu. However, Lu Renfeng hadn't heard anyone mention this name for a long time. After the shocking upheaval in the Heavenly Mysteries Sex Cabinet, she had occupied the sex core technology until now. She had turned the Heavenly Mysteries sect into an underground scientific power, specializing in the development of black technology magical treasures for the tycoons from all over the world. In Lu Renfeng's opinion, Shouchong wanting to challenge Tianji by himself was just an ant trying to shake a tree. At the exit of the underground laboratory, Lu Renfeng walked out of the elevator with her hands behind her back. She had barely taken 2 steps when a member of the intelligence department hurried over. "Madam, the previous plan has failed. We didn't catch that Miss Lotus Sunday. Who told you to catch her?" The corner of Lu Renfeng's mouth twitched. But Madam gave us a photo. It's clearly this son." The person took out the photo and looked at it carefully. Finally, he found some discrepancies. The photo was immediately covered in fine beads of sweat. "Sorry, madam, we made a mistake. The person I want is this girl called Jiang Yingying. No matter what, you have to bring her here. I just want her alive." "You can do whatever you want," Lu Renfeng said. "So, has this matter been taken care of?" "Right now, that Miss Lotus' son has suffered a shock and is receiving treatment. The brother who was caught has already committed suicide by poison, so there's no danger of him being exposed," the person from the intelligence department said. Tell your section chief. If there's a next time, I won't let him off." Yes, at this critical moment, Lu Renfeng didn't want something like this to happen again. Fortunately, this matter had been dealt with in a timely and appropriate manner. As long as that Jiang Yingying was brought to her, everything would be under control. Compared with Shochong's method of gathering hundreds of extremely powerful cultivators to break through the front gate of the secret land and force open the entrance, she only needed Jiang Yingying. She only needed Jiang Yingying to do it. Although this grand plan didn't sound very scary to Jiang Yingying, but Lu Renfeng felt that perhaps this was fate. As the child who had been chosen back then, Jiang Yingying had this kind of mission, to become that sacrificial pawn. At the same time, Lotus Sun was on her way to the hospital where Jiang Yingying was. Her heart was full of apprehension and unease, even though she had just sent Wang Ling a message. Although she had just sent a message to Wang Ling, she didn't get a response from him. "Miss, don't worry too much. Classmate Jiang is fine, her condition is much lighter than that of General Yi's adopted son. Classmate Yi Jiang's condition is more serious. She's just a little frightened. As long as she takes this mind-calming and brain-nourishing pill we gave her, I'm sure she'll recover in no time," Jiang Xiaoche comforted her in the car. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, feeling a little nervous in his heart. He just knew that this little girl would cause trouble again. How long had it been since the incident on Ancient Street stopped? She had so easily believed the words of those villains, and really thought that she could rely on folk remedies to improve her strength in a short period of time. Jiang Xiaoche gritted his teeth and sped up toward the hospital. Just then, a figure suddenly appeared like a ghost on the originally empty road up ahead. Bang! Jiang Xiaoche thought his eyes were playing tricks on him, and by the time he reacted, the car had already crashed into this person. The airbag instantly popped out. When Jiang Xiaoche moved his face away from the airbag, he saw a person covered in black mucus block his car with a hand that only had 3 fingers. This was a biochemical coat, which Lu Renfeng had developed. It could be worn by smearing it on the body, and could substantially increase a cultivator's battle strength based on their realm. "Miss, this isn't good. Are you hurt?" Jiang Xiaoche was utterly shocked. He turned his head to look at Lotus Sun, and only breathed a slight sigh of relief when he saw that she was sitting in the back seat unscathed. "I'm fine. What's the situation outside?" "There's a person covered in black mucus. Are they coming for me?" Lotus Sun sighed, looking as if she had already made her preparations. But in the next second, the mucus man spoke. Standing in front of the car, he sneered. "Classmate Jiang Yingying, we'll have to trouble you to come with us." Chapter 1625. She didn't expect that someone would kidnap her in broad daylight. However, when the slimy man said her name, she was stunned at first, then a look of disbelief appeared in her eyes. Jiang Yingying, how did she become Jiang Yingying again? Lotus Sun held her forehead and stared at the slime man in front of her. "I'm sorry, but if you're looking for classmate Jiang, I'm afraid you've got the wrong person. I'm really not Jiang Yingying. You don't want to admit it?" The slimy man frowned slightly. He glanced at a tree on the side and raised his arm. In an instant, his arm was stretched infinitely in his sight, like a black whip lashing at the tree trunk. The power of a single strike instantly turned the old parasol tree into dust, but this didn't scare her. She continued to sit in the car with her arms crossed. "It seems you don't believe me when I say I'm not Jiang Yingying?" "Of course not." The slime man sneered. "Don't think I don't know that Jiang Wuxing went to see Miss Lotus Sun today. The intelligence department said that they had a secret discussion in the student union office for a long time, so they must be discussing some swapping plan." Lotus Sun, slimy man, after the analysis and reasoning of the head of the intelligence department, he concluded that Miss Lotus Sun had no choice but to agree to Jiang Wuxing's request to switch identities in order to protect student Jiang Yingying. "The two of you look very similar to each other. As long as you make a slight change in your hairstyle, it will be enough to deceive everyone." Hearing this, Lotus Sun sighed slightly in her heart. She didn't have the strength to complain about the director of the intelligence department, who was so illogical. She was just curious about the organization that was acting behind the scenes. In short, judging from the current situation, Jiang Yingying was indeed being targeted. From the start, the other party's target was Jiang Yingying, not him. Moreover, the other party was now certain that they had exchanged identities. In a sense, Jiang Inying, who was lying in the hospital, was absolutely safe. Lotus Sun didn't know what these people were up to, but this seemed to be a good opportunity to figure things out. Alright, I can go with you. But you have to let this driver go. He's innocent. That's easy. We only want you to come with us. We don't mind letting go of other unrelated people. The slimy man spread his hands and laughed. You're quite smart, but why didn't you admit it earlier? You're obviously Jiang Inying. I didn't admit it at all right? I clearly wasn't. She was rather speechless at the intelligence-gathering ability of these people, and she deeply suspected that the chief of the intelligence department might have been suffering from the side effects of watching too many novels. This was too imaginative. He was even more daring than her. Marshal Jiang did come to the student union office to look for her. But that was not the case in the plot at all. In a situation where there was no evidence, he actually made up a plot in his own mind. How could he do that? Stop pretending, Jiang Inying. You are. I'm not. You've already decided to leave with me. What's the point of dwelling on this? Lotus Sun sighed. Alright, look. How dare you say that you're not Jiang Inying? The slimy man snorted as if he had everything under control. Miss. Seeing that Lotus Sun was about to leave with the slimy man, Jiang Xiaoqi hurriedly got out of the car. He opened his hand, and a spiritual light appeared in his hand as he tried to summon a spirit sword to fight back. Humph, behave yourself. However, the slimy man was extremely fast. He suddenly kicked Jiang Xiaoqi in the ribs. Before he could summon the spirit sword, Jiang Xiaoqi felt a huge force on his chest, which sent him flying backward. He crashed into the guardrail on the side of the road and fainted on the spot. Don't worry. He won't die. I didn't use too much strength in this kick. But this road is very remote, and whether anyone will come to save him will depend on his luck. With that, the slimy man took out a capsule and smashed it on the ground. With a puff of smoke, a modified black van appeared in front of Lotus Sunday. This was a disposable space capsule used to store large equipment. As long as it was smashed on the ground, the items stored in the capsule would be released. Get in, Jiang Inying. Student Jiang Inying. The slimy man sneered as he escorted Lotus Sun into the trunk of the van. Lotus Sun was surprised to find that this was an unmanned vehicle. Everything had been set up. As soon as she got in, the van began to move automatically according to the preset route. Moreover, there was a spiritual barrier in the trunk, which was used to block spiritual senses, so that normal cultivators couldn't sense the outside world through it. Of course, it was impossible to block the current Lotus Sun with this barrier alone. But if it was the real Jiang Inying probably wouldn't even know where she would be taken. What's your purpose? With her hands tied behind her back, Lotus Sun sat in her seat with a very calm expression on her face. No wonder you're the granddaughter of that warrior saint. You're quite a hero. The slimy man couldn't help but praise her, and then he spread his hands. But I don't know why we're here. Our intelligence department is only responsible for collecting information and arresting people. Since you know I'm Warrior Saint Zhang's granddaughter, aren't you afraid of offending him? Lotus Sun asked again. Since she had decided to pretend to be Jiang Inying for the time being, she thought she might be able to use this identity to get some useful information. But when the slimy man heard this, he stared at her and sized her up. As if he had heard the funniest joke in the world, he put on a funny expression. Don't worry, the venerable warrior saint won't find us. He can still get along well with that student Jiang Inying and be her model grandfather. What do you mean? Lotus Sun didn't understand. Lin Sanjia was confused, but no matter how she asked, the slimy man remained silent for the rest of the journey, not saying a word. In the van, Lotus Sun expanded her spiritual sense and passed through the barrier. She found that the van had been driving in circles on the road. This group of people had a very strong sense of anti-reconnaissance. They had left their traces everywhere, and had specially set up one-time teleportation arrays at hidden intersections, so that the van frequently shuttled back and forth on every road in the city, making it impossible to tell where it was going. After driving for about 2 hours, Lotus Sun found that the van had been transported by a teleportation array to an open area in the northern suburbs. At the same time, the slimy man, who had been silent for a long time, finally spoke again. "Boss, I've brought student Jiang Yingying. Are you going to see Madam right away?" On the other side of the phone came the electronically processed voice of the head of the intelligence department. "Madam is a germaphobe, and I've already said that you must wash her clean before sending her back." "I see." At this moment, the slimy man smiled. "Then can I wash her myself?" She felt that Sun Yinger did not know how lucky she was. But it was useless. This guy was always looking for trouble. In the end, it was only his waist that was pitiful, and the spirits of the planets that were trembling every day for fear of being crushed by Wang Ying. "So, how do we do this?" Lotus Sun asked. "Just cut it off." "Oh, I'm not talking about cutting his body. We just need to remove that part of his shadow," Sun Yinger replied. "That works?" Lotus Sun was astonished. "Of course. There won't be any external injuries. And the point is that there won't be any problems. It's just that he won't be able to get up again." This process was faster than Lotus Sun had imagined. Sun Yinger's technique was also more adept than she had imagined. It was just a small thing that was 1 or 2 inches long. Sun Yinger directly raised the knife in her hand and swiftly cut it off. Done. At that moment, Lotus Sun's mood was in fact exceptionally complicated. But this wretched man had received the punishment he deserved, and her depressed mood instantly eased up a lot. "So what do we do now?" Sun Yinger asked. "Take off his biochemical coat first." "We'll pretend to be him and directly sneak in," Lotus Sun said. "Fish, but we have to bring someone with us. Aren't they looking for Jiang Yingying?" "If you pretend to be him, what about Jiang Yingying?" Sun Yinger asked. "That's easy." Lotus Sun suddenly laughed and gazed at Sun Yinger. "Holy shit. Don't tell me you want me to pretend to be Jiang Yingying. You look the same as me to begin with. In any case, they're face blind. As long as you change your hairstyle, they probably won't be able to tell us apart. Besides, these secular cultivators won't be able to do anything to you." Sun Yinger, Rongrong, "Are you sure you want me to pretend?" Lotus Sun, "There's no one more suitable than you, Sun Yinger, "Then I'll tell you first, if things get out of hand and there's no way to clean it up, I won't care. If that happens, this base will probably be razed to the ground." There was a hint of tiredness on her face. "Then let's destroy it. Hurry up." Sun Yinger, in the conference room outside the base, Lu Renfeng sat upright on a leather sofa, looking like she had everything planned out. At that moment, a tall and thin man in a black suit pushed open the door and entered. He wore a special medal on his body to show that he was a member of the management team. His name was Hang Chuan, the head of the intelligence department in Lu Renfeng's team. "Madam, we've successfully brought Jiang Yingying here," Hang Chuan said. "It seems a little slower than expected. Madam, please calm down. First, that little girl is a little clever. She actually found the eldest daughter of Huagua Water Curtain Group and swapped identities, trying to use a similar appearance to swap a raccoon for the crown prince." Speaking up to this point, Hang Chuan smiled. "Fortunately, I saw through this plan. Capturing this Miss Jiang was a daunting experience, but not a mishap. Second, I know that Madam is a neat freak, so I had Zhang San take her to take a bath before coming here. Perhaps that Zhang San kid was just dawdling. You guys really know how to enjoy yourselves." Hearing this, Lu Renfeng's expression was as calm as an ancient well. She would turn a blind eye to her subordinates' eccentricities as long as they weren't too out of line. After working in the dark underground all year round, they had to have an outlet to vent their frustrations. After being sacrificed, Jiang Yingying was going to die anyway. It seemed like there was nothing wrong with enjoying an adult's happiness before dying. Forget it. Lu Renfeng waved her hand, her expression gentle. You're sensible enough to bring her to take a bath and see me. Madam, you flatter me. So, is she here? She's already at the door. Bring her in, Lu Renfeng said. She didn't even look sideways, not even lifting her eyes. A moment later, the door opened. Lotus Sun escorted Sun Yinger, who was disguised as Jiang Yingying, in. Sun Yinger didn't dare speak at all, for fear of giving herself away. Only then did Lu Renfeng get up from her seat and walk over to stare at her, sizing her up. The atmosphere instantly became tense. She looked at her for a full 2 or 3 minutes. Only then did Lu Renfeng say slowly, Jiang Yingying, it really is you. Hearing this, Lotus Sun and Sun Yinger immediately let out long sighs of relief. But to be reasonable, this face-blind person was too much. Well done, Zhang San. Lu Renfeng then looked up at Lotus Sunday. What are you standing there for? Hurry up and thank Madam, said Hang Chuan, the chief of the intelligence department. Lotus Sun bowed. What are you talking about? Why are you so reserved today? Hang Chuan laughed. Madam, please don't take offense. It's probably the first time he's seen you, and he's awed by your majesty. He's a capable young man, he can be promoted later. Many thanks, Madam, Hang Chuan said with cupped fists in a very sociable manner. At this moment, he looked at Lotus Sun and frowned slightly. Come to think of it, Zhang San. Speaking of which, Zhang San, have you been training your chest muscles recently? Judging from this biochemical suit, your chest muscles seem pretty big. For some reason, when she heard this, she actually felt a little happy. Chapter 1627. The sirens of the ambulance rose and fell, and when Jiang Xiaoqi woke up, he was already on his way to the hospital. His injuries were pretty serious. When the sticky man's flying leg had landed on him, he had clearly heard the sound of his ribs breaking. This damn thing. Ever since he was young, even his mother had never hit him. Damn it. May you die without descendants. When Jiang Xiaoqi gradually regained consciousness, this was the first thought that popped into his mind. Then, he suddenly opened his eyes, as if he had been startled awake. Miss Lotus Sun, they took her away. Mr. Jiang, please calm down. The police are already on the case, said a female nurse. This part of the road is so remote, how did you find me? Jiang Xiaoqi asked suspiciously. Someone called the police. Who? I'm not sure. But it sounded like a teenager's voice. Teenager? Jiang Xiaoqi was thoughtful. Elsewhere, in the study of the Wang family's small villa, Wang Ling was finishing his homework for the day. When Lotus Sun had been kidnapped, he had actually already sensed it. Given Lotus Sun's current strength, plus the fact that Sun Yinger was with her, he didn't need to worry about her safety. But in the end, he had still called the police. Now, Lotus Sun had already snuck in. His call to the police could be said to have affected the situation as a whole. Once the government got involved in this matter, Lu Renfeng's underground research team would be surrounded. This was the first reason why Wang Ling had called the police. The second reason was that he was going to help Songhai First Prison's Mahjong trio find a new cellmate. These four had been missing one for a long time. Wang Ling felt that it was time to arrange for new people to move in. As for Jiang Xiaoqi, Wang Ling had just saved him in passing. He didn't like this person. But after all, Jiang Xiaoqi was now working for Lotus Sun, and the driver's life was also a life. Now, Wang Ling actually didn't need to worry about anything else. He felt that Lotus Sun would be fine. It was just Lu Renfeng, and it wasn't enough for him to make a move. Thus, he settled his thoughts and decided to seriously complete the exercise set in front of him. The monthly exams were coming up, and it was time to calculate marks and keep them down. However, he realized that after writing only a few words, his thoughts started to drift. He wasn't annoyed, depressed, or uneasy. He just felt that this feeling came out of nowhere. Because of the talisman, he had become an emotionless piece of wood in everyone's eyes. Even now, he still didn't feel any emotion. It was just that his mind would inexplicably fall into a blank state. It was as if something was suppressing him. The pen in his hand stopped, and he felt that he had inexplicably been a little down on his homework today. On the bed, Wang Ying pretended to sleep with one hand under her head. She quietly opened her left eye a slit and looked at Wang Ling. "If you're really worried, go and take a look yourself." Hearing this, Wang Ling muttered in his heart and couldn't help thinking, "Why don't you go yourself?" Wang Ling didn't retort, mainly because Wang Ying's brain circuitry was connected to his. He could hear it anyway. The man on the bed leisurely crossed his legs, a leisurely expression on his face. "Have you ever seen a wife castrate her husband? She actually wants to castrate me. Who gave her the guts? I'm now thinking of how to torment her tonight. Before I figure it out, I can't be bothered to go." Wang Ling, sure enough, Wang Ying knew all about it. This wasn't strange. Sun Yinger could still use her Shadow Dao ability normally for now. But in the end, Wang Ying was in a favorable position. 139 especially recently at home, since Loopy Toad had started to help Wang Wan change her diapers, Wang Ying had also started to learn how to coax little girl Nwan. Now that things had gotten better, little girl Nwan naturally had a good impression of Wang Ying. Thus, Wang Ying's Shadow Dao authority was naturally one level higher than Sun Yinger's. This was probably what the so-called higher officials could crush people to death meant. Actually, Wang Ling couldn't tell at all that Wang Ying was the type of person who would patiently take care of a child. He called this adapting in advance. He said that if he and Sun Yinger got together in the future, he wouldn't need to put in so much effort to learn, and would be able to do it right away. After hearing this, Wang Ling was dumbfounded on the spot. It had to be said that this guy Wang Ying was really prepared for a rainy day. The girl hadn't even agreed yet, and he had already started to call her his wife. At that moment, Wang Ling sighed in his heart. He was clearly such a low-key person, so why was the shadow he had conjured so shameless? It was Wang Ling who had helped report Lotus Sun's arrest to the police. Very quickly, Huaxiao Alliance was alerted by this incident. This clearly wasn't an ordinary kidnapping case, and it would be difficult for the local cultivation police to deal with it. Thus, when Old Man Sun heard about it, he was so anxious that he directly called Battle Sect. In fact, Battle Sect had already taken action before Old Man Sun had called. But this was actually against the rules, so Huaxiao Alliance still had to report it. Senior Immortal. She's my only granddaughter, nothing must happen to her. Over the phone, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal heard Sun Yiyuan sob for the first time. He sighed in his heart. It was a pity that the old man currently knew nothing about his precious granddaughter's strength. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so anxious. Once Lotus Sun's strength was exposed, it would directly affect Wang Ling. Thus, this was a top secret at Battle Sect's core level, and even Old Man Sun couldn't tell him directly at the moment. Because even if he did, he might not believe him. Who would have thought that a girl at the Foundation establishment stage would be able to fight a Dao god on her own in just a few short days? In order to appease the old man, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal could only say over the phone, "Brother Sun, rest assured, Miss Lotus Sun's business is my business. My Battle Sect will definitely gather the strength of the entire sect to rescue Miss Lotus Sunday. At the same time, to prevent any accidents, we have a full medical team on our side. I promise Brother Sun that we will definitely bring Miss Lotus Sun back safely. Thank you, everyone." Old Man Sun's voice trembled as he hung up the phone. "He's really anxious," said grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. "Sect leader, what should we do now?" Jua asked at that moment. "Even if Miss Lotus Sun has the strength to fight, if we don't do anything, we might still arouse suspicion. So, we can only take action," said grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. "And the bigger the better. Gather the strength of the entire sect?" "No." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal shook his head. Today's Battle Sect wasn't what it used to be. It had allies all over the world. This was grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's initial plan for the Grand Alliance of Cultivators. When the intelligence network and all kinds of resources of Battle Sect's allies all over the world were connected, no matter how well Lu Renfeng's team hid themselves, they would be exposed in broad daylight in an instant. It's not gathering the strength of the entire sect. At that moment, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said solemnly, it's gathering the strength of the entire world. The strength of the entire world. Audiobook was shocked. Yes, the strength of the entire world. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said, I think this is why Brother Ling called the police. He wanted the authorities to step in and blow up the situation. What we want is precisely this wave of momentum that can completely scare off those lawbreakers who are secretly plotting against Miss Sunday. Thus, it will serve as a warning to the rest. So that's what Shifu meant. Realization dawned on Audiobook, and he hurriedly cupped his fists. As expected of Senior Immortal, Audiobook has learned his lesson. Well said, well said. In front of Battle Sect's true venerated hall, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal flicked his sleeves confidently. Come. Issue the sect leader's order. In the distance, Wang Ling was stupefied at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's big move. All he did was call the police. Chapter 1628. Sect Leader's Order. The entire sect. Disciples at the Golden Core stage and above, assemble in the North Square immediately. Sect Leader. The entire sect. Disciples at the Golden Core stage and below, prepare for battle immediately. Commanding Elders, please take your positions. Clang. 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 When Battle Sect's Grand Assembly bell rang out from inside the sect, tens of thousands of disciples swiftly returned to their positions according to the instructions issued by the command center. It was just that this wasn't a drill. This was a serious battle. Currently, Battle Sect, which was recognized as the #1 sect in the world, was actually going to take the initiative to fight. For a moment, all the disciples were in a daze. When the Battle Sect disciples came back to their senses, they were replaced by a strong sense of excitement. Although Battle Sect hadn't been established for a long time, all the disciples who joined knew that their sect had a strong foundation. This was definitely going to be a rich battle. A rich battle that they might not be able to wait for 8 lifetimes. It had to be known that in an era of peace, cultivation sects that were partially under the jurisdiction of the government had to be approved for such a large-scale assembly to prepare for war. The relationship between Battle Sect and Huaxiao Alliance was inseparable. It was impossible for this large-scale operation to go unreported. If other sects declared war, there might be voices of doubt in society. But Battle Sect was different. This was a sect that had joined Huaxiao Alliance, and represented Huaxiao Alliance. So here was the question, which force on earth was going to challenge Battle Sect now? Less than a quarter of an hour after the sect leader's order was issued, all the disciples in the sect had been gathered and started to work according to the original plan. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch and Keon were in charge of the command center. Since all the disciples at the Golden Core stage and above had been transferred out, it was impossible for the sect to be leaderless. With these 2 people holding the fort, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was naturally very reassured. Battle Sect's underground command center had been personally designed by Wang Ming, and it was full of high-tech déjà vu. A golden magic ball floated in the center of the command center. This magic ball was connected to every inch of Earth's coordinates, and was connected to Battle Sect's exclusive satellite with very little error. Most importantly, this command magic ball could determine the outcome of a battle from 1,000 li away, and see everything it wanted to see. Does the sect leader have any requests? Keon asked. He hadn't been in Battle Sect for long, but grenade-throwing Senior Immortal liked him very much. He was a very capable and practical person. Most importantly, he was a PhD in the field of war and cultivation weaponry. This kind of knowledge wasn't something an ordinary person could possess. Furthermore, he never asked too many questions, and only cared about completing the tasks that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Audiobook had assigned him. This was something that Kun had a good impression of. It's best if we can capture them all alive, Crispy Noodles said. Capture them all alive? Corn frowned slightly. I know it's difficult, said Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch. Keep the enemy's casualty rate below 1%. Of course, destroy all the enemy bases. Understood. Korn nodded solemnly. Right now, he could only try his best. He knew that the main reason why the higher-ups wanted to capture him alive was to find out what Lu Renfeng was up to. But to be honest, even a 1% casualty rate seemed to be very difficult. Because according to the information that Kun had gathered so far, the battle sect was not the only one in charge of fighting. By you. Such a large-scale operation could be said to be like pulling one hair and moving the whole body. He didn't know Lu Renfeng, and had practically never heard of her before. This young Madame Phoenix seemed to be a little famous in the Cultivation Academy of Science, but in Kun's eyes, this Lu Renfeng was just an unlucky egg. Less than 10 minutes after Battle sect leader order was issued, this matter was further amplified through the spread of modern information on the internet. There were a lot of sects that received orders to assist in battle, and one of them was the Skylight Alliance, which had previously tried to unite but had in fact failed miserably. For a previous story, see Chapter 819. Before Battle sect had been established, the 17 sky-level sects in the Alliance had protected each other and blocked the advancement of the sects behind them. On the day Battle sect had opened for business, President Liu Yuming of the Alliance had been under tremendous pressure and had tried to make things difficult for them, but in the end, he had failed. Especially after learning that Battle sect's backer was Huaxiu Alliance, Liu Yuming had almost had the urge to stab himself to death. Since Battle sect's existence had broken the long-standing balance of order between Huaxiu Nation's sects, the Alliance had long since ceased to exist in name. On the surface, they were still united as one family, but in fact, there were some problems with each sect's operations. A few days ago, many sect leaders had been unable to withstand the pressure, and had wanted Liu Yuming to represent them in negotiating a partnership with Battle sect. But after all, he had done such a shameful thing, and Liu Yuming himself was at a loss. But what Liu Yuming hadn't expected was, today, the Alliance had actually received a battle invitation from Battle sect. Overwhelmed by the favor, Liu Yuming immediately gathered all the sky-level sect leaders of the Alliance. Everyone, what do you think of this? Liu Yuming asked. Given Battle sect's power and heritage, why would they need our help in battle? This is clearly for the sake of building momentum. I'm afraid it's for others to see. Leaping sect master analyzed. Since Battle sect's rise, everyone's sects have been more or less affected. To be honest, in the past, I definitely wouldn't have gone. But for the sake of my livelihood, I think it's worth a try. Radish King sect leader Sun Hanja said, I heard from others in the circle that sect leader grenade throwing has always been a righteous person. Now that he has reached the true venerable stage, he doesn't seem to be a petty person. I will definitely accept this olive branch. Even if you guys object, I will still go. Brother Sun, there's no need to be in such a hurry, we didn't say we won't go. Then what do you all mean? Go. Go now. At this point, all the sect leaders spoke up, their emotions stirring. Liu Yuming saw this and already had an idea in his heart, then it looks like none of the sect leaders present have any objections. Now, let's start counting the number of Golden Core stage and above disciples of our 17 sky-level sections. Currently, we have gathered our 17 sky-level sects, with a total of 36,000 Golden Core stage and above disciples. According to Battle sect's battle invitation, all sect leaders, please lead your sect's Golden Core stage and above disciples to gather in the northern suburbs at 10 o'clock tonight. After Liu Yuming finished, the remaining 16 sect leaders all stood up, cupped their fists and said in unison. We will obey your orders. Rushed to Battle sect's aid. The scale of this group battle was so grand that it caused people to be flabbergasted. Liu Yuming had originally thought that Battle sect and their 17 sky-level sects were already the limit. However, after Liu Yuming accepted the battle invitation and assigned the mission, he joined the Battle sect 1225's temporary command group chat. Only at this moment did he suddenly realize that things were not as simple as he had imagined. Because, in this temporary command group, more than half of his friends in the cultivation world had already joined. These people were all sect leaders from all over the world, both at home and abroad. At this time, the number of people in the group was still soaring. 5 minutes after Lu Yuming joined the 1225 command group, there were already 270 sect leaders of Earth level and above sects gathered in the group. Chapter 1629. At the same time, on Sun Island. The Jiugong family. The Jiugong family had successfully completed the Sun Island student exchange program between No. 60 High School and Kyushu High School. Now that the Jiugong family had annexed Sun Island's largest underworld gang, the Star-Picking Group, and had a deep strategic partnership with Huaguo Water Curtain Group behind them, they were truly like the sun at high noon. In the main hall of the Jiugong family, the news that Lotus Sun had been captured by the young phoenix had reached them. Head of the family, Jiugong Akaji, was furious. What? Miss Lotus Sun was captured? How preposterous. Who on earth is this young Madam Phoenix? She must have eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's gall. Father, please calm down. Hideki said, according to the information our Jiugong family has gathered from the Sun Island Grey Sect branch, this young Madam Phoenix is an underground scientist who has been targeted by the International Alliance of Cultivators for a long time. She's very famous in the underground scientific community for conducting inhumane and immoral scientific experiments. Hearing this, Jiugong Akaji frowned slightly. Somehow, he felt like he had heard of this before. Father, Huaxiao Alliance has already dispatched people from Battle Sect. I think we should, even if we don't do anything, but we can't not do it. Jiugong Akaji said, our Jiugong family and the Sun family are now working closely together. Even though our Jiugong family did not receive a battle invitation from the Battle Sect this time, how do you know that this is not a test? Hearing this, Hideki was suddenly enlightened. Father, do you mean that Battle Sect deliberately didn't send us an invitation? That's very likely. Jiugong Akaji nodded. Given the relationship between Battle Sect and the Sun family, they should know that our Jiugong family has already established a partnership with Huaguo Water Curtain Group. So this time, it seems like they're testing our attitude. Saying this, Jiugong Akaji couldn't help laughing. Actually, even if they hadn't been testing, he would have taken action. After all, he, the head of the Jiugong family, had already joined the Grey Sect. Now that his sect leader was in trouble. He was a heretic. How could he not save him? It was just that it might be too late to send someone over from Sun Island now. If they were too late, they wouldn't be able to express their loyalty in time. Immortal harmony. Jiugong Akaji called the name of the head steward of the Jiugong family. Luminous Immortal Harmony heard this and immediately stepped forward. Subordinate is here. Tell them to use all the connections our Jiugong family has in Huaxiao Nation that we can use, said Jiugong Akaji. In fact, in order to expand the Jiugong family's business in Huaxiao Nation, they had already set up a base in Huaxiao Nation for many years. Regarding this point, Immortal and Ming, as the head butler, naturally knew about it. However, he was worried that this was not enough. I know what you're thinking. Are you worried that the connections we can find are limited? Sitting cross-legged on the tatami, Jiugong Akaji said, when Senior Li Xian came to visit us, he said that he was entrusted by Mr. Jin Dang to update the main ghost record of our Jiugong family, strengthen the seal, and give him a talisman outside the ghost record. As long as you have this talisman, you can freely control all the evil spirits recorded in the ghost list. There's such a thing? Immortal Harmony and Jiugong Xiushi looked at each other in dismay. They were completely unaware of this matter. At this time, Akaji Kuya suddenly laughed. Who said that only cultivators can come to the rescue? Now, we can freely control the ghosts recorded in the ghost register. Clan head, you mean? Luminous Immortal Harmony was stunned. Let Yoshiko go and set an example for the Kumiya family, Akaji said. When No. 60 High's group left the island for me, he had entrusted Li Xian to hand over the ghost talisman to Ryoko Kamiya. Indeed. Because of their transnational connections, the Jiugong family's connections in Huaxiao Nation were indeed limited. Especially in a battle of such a grand scale, they might only be a drop in the ocean. However, it would be a completely different story if he could summon the dead ones. Madame Feng Chu would never have thought of this. The people who had come to encircle and annihilate him this time. Not only were there living cultivators gathered by various forces. The Jugong family was also the representative. 100,000 soldiers, to be honest, when Keon had joined 1,225's temporary command group, he had also been shocked by the number of people in the group. In such a short period of time, so many sky-level and earth-level sect leaders had actually gathered to come to the rescue. This was something that Keon had never expected. Now, he would actually have to command these people to fight. Looks like a lot of people have gathered. Senior Immortal's reputation in the circle is indeed very high. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch looked at this scene with an indifferent expression and smiled. How about it, Mr. Keon, can you handle it? At that moment, Keon stood in front of the command platform, his whole body trembling. It wasn't because he was afraid, but because he was excited. It had been a long time since he had felt this kind of blood-boiling feeling. War was an art. As the commander of this battle, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had full trust in him, and he naturally had to do his best. After a long while. After taking a deep breath, Keon finally spoke in a powerful voice, which was accurately transmitted to everyone's minds through the core sound output system inside Battle Sect. Everyone involved in this encirclement and annihilation of the young phoenix could hear Keon's voice. Everyone. I am Keon, the commander-in-chief of this encirclement and annihilation of the young phoenix. I'm very honored to be fighting alongside all of you this time. The target of our encirclement and annihilation this time is that underground scientist who has already been wanted for a long time, Madam Phoenix. Huaxiu Alliance has been keeping an eye on her for a long time, but because Miss Lotus Sun was captured this time, they had no choice but to close the net early. In this encirclement and annihilation, your mission is to rescue Miss Lotus Sun. Capture everyone in the young Phoenix's laboratory alive, including Madam Phoenix. In addition, you also need to do your best to help gather evidence of Madam Phoenix's crimes. This time, this encirclement and annihilation. There are no feints. All the sect leaders participating in this operation will be the main attackers. Once you arrive at the agreed location, please act according to our command center's instructions. May your immortal luck prosper. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Loopy Toad had temporarily returned to the top of the Holy Pillar in the demon world through Lord Ma's power. It was as if Holy Envoy Shen Wuyue had already guessed that Loopy Toad would come, and had been waiting here for a long time. The corners of his mouth curled up. You're already a divine beast, why do you need our help? Cough cough, even if I'm a divine beast, I still have to keep a low profile. Besides, even if I become a divine beast, my heart is still focused on the development of my hometown. Loopy Toad said, What, you're not willing to help? No, Lord's second-generation demon saint and I are naturally willing to help. Shen Wuyue shook his head and said, Now that the demon world and the human world have turned hostility into friendship and will work together in the future, this is indeed a heaven-sent opportunity to show our attitude. Of course, the key is still to give Ling Jinren face. Interesting. Loopy Toad said, Then, how many people can the demon world send? You can have as many as you want. At that moment, Shen Wuyue held the magic ball in his hand and tossed it into the air. A dazzling map of the demon world appeared in front of Loopy Toad. He looked at Loopy Toad and said, In the demon world, 96 outer territories, 8 middle territories and 4 inner territories, a total of 108 territories, are ready and awaiting your orders. So big? Loopy Toad was surprised. Don't you like big things? Shen Wuyue laughed. Oh, that's right, let me tell you one more thing. Loopy Toad, ? Shen Wuyue, I've already joined the Grey Sect. Loopy Toad. Chapter 1630. At that moment, Lotus Sun was focused on collecting evidence of Madame Phoenix's crimes, and had no idea that an earthquake had already broken out outside Songhai City. With Battle Sect as the core, all the cultivators who had been summoned to form an alliance army were on their way to outflank Phoenix's laboratory in the northern suburbs. Naturally, it was impossible for such a large-scale operation to be completely hidden. At most, they could control public opinion at the very beginning, but in the end, it would definitely explode on the internet in an unstoppable manner. As one of the core teams in Phoenix's laboratory, the intelligence department's mission was naturally to keep an eye on any movement online. Heng Chuan, the chief of the intelligence department, immediately received the news through his headset, and immediately reported to Lu Renfeng. "Madam, there seems to be a lot of strange news online today." "Oh. Let's hear it." "Someone saw a lot of cultivators from various sects marching through the downtown area on swords in a very neat formation." "Interesting." Lu Renfeng cupped her chin in thought. "Did you find out what they're doing?" "I heard that Battle's sect is organizing the Alliance army for a drill." "Drill?" "Yes, but this is just hearsay at the moment, and there's no substantial evidence. We're still trying to understand the situation. Before that, to be on the safe side, should Madam." "No need, it's just a drill." "It's just a drill." Lu Renfeng's expression gradually turned crazy. "I've been waiting for this day for too long. I don't want to waste even a second." "But Madam, there are still risks, no need to say more." Lu Renfeng waved her hand. "If Battle Sect's Alliance army is really coming for our base in the northern suburbs, they wouldn't be so ostentatious. Also, they think too highly of me, Lu Renfeng, to make such a big fuss over a little girl." After saying that, this crazy woman glanced at Sun Yinger, who was pretending to be Jiang Yingying. "Girl, relax. Even if these people are really here to save you, it's useless. No one can save you now," Lu Renfeng said with a smile. Shortly after, she walked to an extremely high-tech door. "Heng Chuan, you and Zhang San can come with me." "Madam, that's a restricted area, you never let us in." The chief of the intelligence department was overwhelmed by the favor. He hurriedly lowered his head, looking at a loss. "Don't worry, everything will be over soon. The intelligence department is my trusted aide. Since you're working under me, you need to know some things," she said meaningfully and glanced at Sun Yinger. "Little girl Jiang, perhaps you should thank me after this is over. Because in this world, only I, Feng Chu, am able to free you from pain." Lotus Sun and Sun Yinger were baffled by his words and didn't understand what he meant. But from the moment they had entered this underground base and gathered all the intelligence, Lotus Sun could basically conclude that Jiang Yingying wasn't as simple as they had imagined. Although she was adopted by Marshal Jiang, her background seemed to be extraordinary. She was not an ordinary orphan, but some special existence. Lu Renfeng led the way in front. The four of them were passing through a long glass tunnel. The glass cabinets on the side were filled with all kinds of spirit beast organ specimens. Under the dim light, they looked a little creepy. "You crazy woman, what do you mean?" Sun Yinger tried to get information from Jiang Yingying. "Haven't you noticed that your body is getting worse and worse?" Lu Renfeng didn't directly answer Sun Yinger's question, and instead asked a question of her own. "It seems a little," Sun Yinger replied. Her body was indeed getting worse, but the main reason was because of Wang Ying. The side effect of using the planetary blockage spell too much was back pain. There was nothing she could do about it. "That's right," Lu Renfeng said. "Because your body isn't very compatible with the man-made spirit root of the first generation." Man-made spirit root? Lotus Sun and Sun Yinger were both stunned. It wasn't that Lotus Sun didn't know about man-made spirit roots. In the current cultivation world, the strength of a spirit root represented one's future talent. A long, long time ago, in order to give birth to children with excellent spiritual roots, some cultivators would often take the extreme route, which was to consume a lot of tonics during pregnancy so that when their children were born, their spiritual roots would reach a high level. But the effects of supplements were actually very limited. Thus, a few decades ago, the topic of man-made spirit roots had become a hot topic. If a child with mediocre spirit roots at birth could reach the level of an outstanding cultivator through man-made spirit roots, then this technology would become a ready-made money-printing machine, which would dominate both the current and future markets. In the beginning, research teams from various countries conducted experiments on spirit beasts by studying the spirit roots in their bodies. But in order to make breakthroughs as quickly as possible, some scientists began to purchase slaves on the black market to provide lab rats for their own laboratories. The progress from thousands of experiments on spirit beasts might not even be as much as the progress from one experiment on a real cultivator. When this matter was exposed back then, it caused a worldwide uproar. Lotus Sun hadn't expected that this was what this young Madame Phoenix had been researching all along, but now, experiments on man-made spirit roots had been proven to be against human morality, and had long since been banned. The more she listened, the more she felt that there was something wrong with Lu Renfeng's words. Wait a minute. The spirit root in Jiang Yingying's body was actually man-made? Lotus Sun's expression was one of astonishment. Back then, in order to create this man-made spirit root, I used a lot of materials obtained from different secret realms to synthesize spirit roots. I used different materials and formulas. Then, I implanted these spirit roots made from different materials into the bodies of selected babies. And you were one of those children. The crazy woman paced back and forth with her hands clasped behind her back as she said, as if talking to herself, later, I ordered people to scatter those children and look for cultivator families to adopt them. I wanted to see how long those children could live. At this point, Lu Renfeng stopped walking. She turned around and looked at Sun Yinger. Reaching out with her sinful hand, she pinched Sun Yinger's chin and said, there were 462 children in that batch. And you were the only one who survived. Not only did this young Madame Phoenix not feel the slightest bit guilty about what she had done back then, she was even brimming with pride. She looked at Sun Yinger and continued, cultivation science has always been accompanied by sacrifices. The spirit root in your body now is the correct formula for man-made spirit roots. Moreover, a small part of the materials used to make your spirit root are also things from that secret realm. As long as I extract the spirit root in your body and analyze it again, I can easily decipher the password to open the back door of that secret realm. Do you know what this means? It means that I can remove all the materials used to create man-made spirit roots from that secret realm. I will become the first person in history in this field. Hearing this, Lotus Sun involuntarily clenched her little fists. What kind of crazy woman was this? She was simply a she-devil. She continued to speak like a demon. Jiang Yingying, when I saw you back then, you were only the size of a cabbage. You were frail and sickly, there was no way you could have lived to this age. It was my man-made spirit root that saved you. And now, it's time for you to repay me, isn't it? Chapter 1631. The large-scale rescue operation had been very powerful. In addition to the allied army of cultivators, there were also some big-shot cultivators hiding behind the scenes. For example, Li Xian and Zhang Ziden. To put it bluntly, both Li Xian and Zhang Ziden felt that they were at least somewhat responsible for this incident. If they had handled things more decisively, with just the two of them, they might have been able to directly find Madame Phoenix's nest and flatten this madwoman's base. They wouldn't have had to trouble Miss Lotus Sun to do it herself. Li Xian and Zhang Ziden were well aware of the relationship between Lotus Sun and Wang Ling, and thus felt deeply ashamed. Looking at all the evidence, the thousand-faced man they were after was definitely connected to this young Madame Phoenix. In other words, this young Madame Phoenix wasn't as simple as she looked. For a technique like the thousand faces aberration, where even the faces they saw were different, the strength of the person behind it must be unfathomable. If one were to use this as a basis for inference, then there would be two results in front of them. First, there was an ancient powerhouse working under Madame Feng Chu. The second was that the person with the thousand-faced divine ability was Madame Phoenix herself. This Lu Renfeng is just an earth cultivator. Which ancient person would take a liking to her? Unless she was hit by a meteorite and lost her memory, there's no way she would be influenced by an ordinary earth cultivator like her, Zhang Ziden said as he sipped on his iced latte in the Daebak Cafe. The ancient person he mentioned was an abbreviation for an ancient expert. It was also a term that Zhang Ziden had recently picked up from the internet. Nowadays, it seemed very popular among young people to sum up a certain type of person as XX person. For example, Zuan person, book changer, Kushuan will die if you don't curse for a day, Zhang Zidin thought it was very interesting, so he picked it up in passing. In the end, he realized that it went quite well, and Li Xian was also successfully led astray. Although I don't think an ancient person would work for an earth cultivator like Lu Renfeng, the problem is, isn't Ling Zhenren also an earth cultivator? After Li Xian said this, Zhang Zidin opened his mouth, but was suddenly struck speechless for a moment. Yes, Wang Ling was very strong. He was so strong that they couldn't even imagine or measure him. But Wang Ling was indeed a genuine earthling. Furthermore, they were born from two earthlings who hadn't even reached the foundation establishment stage. This was something they didn't really believe in. It was not until Wang Yuan was born that Li Xian and Zhang Ziqin completely accepted the fact. Who would have thought that a little girl who had just been born on Earth would be as strong as a monster? She could hang them up and beat up two ancestor-level experts. In that case, even if the probability is low, it's not completely impossible, right? Zhang Zi snickered. In comparison, the fact that he, Lu Renfeng, and the thousand-faced man were the same person became much weaker after their discussion. If she, Lu Renfeng, was a primordial immortal, she would definitely not be interested in the arcane realms on Earth, even if Earth has been upgraded. Zhang Zi snickered. There are many factors in the formation of a secret realm. To put it simply, it's like a jar of old wine. The older it was, the more valuable the mystic realm would be. In the boundless Milky Way, there are countless secret realms that have not been explored for a long time. How could the secret realms on Earth be worth their attention? I agree. Li Xian nodded and said, Lu Renfeng only explored the secret realms for money. Her vision is still not as good as that of the primordial immortal. In the end, we are in different realms. Back then, I was also seeking money, but I had my reasons. Zhang Zi snickered at this time. Why do you say that, Brother Ziqin? Money is evil. I just take these sins into my own hands and bear them silently. Zhang Zi sighed. If I don't go to hell, who will? Li Xian, about 2 minutes later, Zhang Zi snickered, finished the last mouthful of coffee in his hand and immediately got up. Let's go, Brother Li Xian. Let's put an end to it together. Okay, Li Xian said seriously, but how are we going to get in? This time, the Alliance army has a unified command and a symbol of allies. We don't have anything. Isn't it inappropriate to go in like this? There's nothing inappropriate about it. Zhang Zi snickered suddenly. Aren't we just enthusiastic citizens passing by? So that was it. At this moment, Li Xian suddenly understood. While Li Xian and Zhang Ziqin were preparing to set off, in Songhai First Prison, the three-man mahjong team led by General Bai was also launching a new round of operations. Because this was a free opportunity to earn points. As long as they participated in the Alliance army, they would earn points. Of course, if they could render meritorious service in this operation, they would earn extra points. All three of them had been sentenced to more than 1,000 years. Naturally, they wouldn't miss this opportunity to earn points to offset their sentences. Was that Miss Sun arrested? After General Bai told them the ins and outs of the matter, the three-man team felt that it was inconceivable. They had only heard about it from the prison guards and knew that there was a large-scale Allied army operation in Songhai City. They had thought it was just a drill, but now that they were in General Bai's car, they understood why on earth this large-scale Allied army was here. To tell the truth, the three people in the mahjong team were a little taken aback. Do the three of you have any impression of Lu Renfeng? General Bai asked at that moment. After all, the three people sitting in the car at that moment enjoyed top-notch caretakers in Songhai First Prison. Most importantly, they had previously been leaders of underworld forces, so they couldn't be any more familiar with the Dark Network and other underground organizations. Are you talking about Lu Fengchao? The old devil asked. That's her. General Bai asked, why, are you familiar with her? We don't have any business dealings, I just saw her in an underground human trafficking market, the old devil said. I still remember that she and another person were fellow disciples. The other person was nicknamed Crouching Dragon. But compared with her, this Crouching Dragon is indeed very low-key. Do you mean they have a shifu? Yes. But my venerable self doesn't know much about who that shifu is. General Bai cupped his chin in his hand and pondered for a moment. Feng Chao's underground laboratory in the northern suburbs was already under the control of the Alliance army, and the encirclement had been formed. Lu Renfeng couldn't escape now. Apart from capturing her alive, the higher-ups had instructed them to collect as much evidence as possible. Now that they had set out a little too late, it wouldn't be advantageous for them to intervene head-on. Thus, when General Bai heard this, he suddenly felt that he and the Mahjong trio might be able to think differently. Do you know where this underground human trafficking market is? He asked at that moment, raising his head. These people are all cunning. Even if I give them the address, they might have already changed it, the old devil said. If there's no one there, wouldn't it be a wasted trip? There are always clues, General Bai said. You've done a great service. The old devil immediately replied, in Winter City. Winter City? Master of Immortal Mansion Xingyu was blank. Back then, the entrance to his Immortal Mansion had been in Winter City. Come to think of it, that was where his dream had begun. Chapter 1632. Now, people from all sides set off in different directions. Some surrounded the place, some built momentum, and some collected evidence. There were actually quite a few enthusiastic citizen groups like Zhang Zizi and Li Xian. They didn't do it for fame, but for the light of righteousness, and only wanted to contribute that light and warmth in their hearts. Of course, the vast majority of them were Grey Church disciples. After all, their leader had been abducted. How could they not save him? Of course, most of the Grey Church disciples were still students and didn't have the ability to stop the rescue, but they could still stop a large-scale attack on public opinion online. For a time, a lot of dirt on Lu Renfeng was exposed online. There had always been a lot of rumors about Madame Phoenix, but in the online environment, many things were half true and half false, and no one would really believe them. But sometimes, as long as public opinion was focused, it didn't matter if it was true or not, it would become true. The passers-by were labeled as old fence-sitters. As long as 7 out of 10 people said it was true, they would believe what they believed in no matter what the truth was. This was also why in the current online environment, when it came to some unconfirmed news, you'd find that the people who started cursing and the people who apologized later were the same people. Those who apologized weren't bad, but more people chose to remain silent after the tables were turned. The internet was like a mask. When one's true face was covered by the mask, all the hideous and ugly expressions would be covered by the mask. Logically speaking, with such a huge uproar online, if Lu Renfeng had been a little more observant, she might have realized that she had caught the wrong person. Unfortunately, Madame Phoenix was still too anxious. She firmly believed that the person she had caught was Jiang Yingying herself. Without stopping, she led Lotus Sun Yinger, and the intelligence department's chief into the forbidden laboratory. This was a secret laboratory space that Lu Renfeng had specially opened up, and only she had the highest authority. As soon as the intelligence department's chief, Hang Chuan, entered, he found that the signal in his headset had been blocked. He didn't know that the internal intelligence department of the laboratory was currently in chaos. In Hang Chuan's absence, the intelligence department was a group of dragons without a leader, and they couldn't directly break into the forbidden laboratory to tell Lu Renfeng the truth. The internet says that we caught the wrong person? Wrong person? No way. Zhang San has never failed before, so how could Jiang Yingying and Lotus Sun not tell the difference? Look at the news online. I don't think it's fake news at all. This. I have to tell Madam quickly. Where is Madam now? Forbidden Laboratory. Madam has already entered the Forbidden Laboratory. Ugh. It's over. Inside the restricted laboratory, Lu Renfeng pointed at a bed in front of her. Come, classmate Jiang, lie down. The expression on the madwoman's face was as calm as an ancient well. I advise you to be more obedient. I've always been very fast. Moreover, the amount of anesthetic is enough to make you die without any pain. Sun Yinger never thought that she, the master of the void, would have to lie on the operating table one day. Your scalpel is not sharp. What if you can't cut it open? Sun Yinger sighed. She was surprisingly cooperative and did not struggle or resist. She just lay down. Her obedience surprised Lu Renfeng. I thought you would struggle a little. I didn't expect you to be so cooperative. You're a good kid. I didn't waste my efforts to save you all those years ago. Heh, you don't have to say such pretty words. You've killed so many innocent people in order to develop an artificial spirit root. You just happen to be lucky enough to get the thing in my body. Do you really think you're that good? Sun Yinger replied, as if she was immersed in her acting. Luck is also a part of strength. At this moment, Lu Renfeng opened the mechanism in the restricted laboratory and took out a scalpel that was glowing with a faint blue light. Tell me, do you have any unfulfilled wishes? As long as I can do it, I'll fulfill them for you. Can I really? Sun Yinger's expression grew more and more excited. Yes. Lu Renfeng nodded and smiled. If I open the infinite realm and empty all the materials in it, I'll become the richest person on earth. As long as I have money, there's nothing I can't do. Then help me, kill someone? Sun Yinger asked. Then can you help me, kill someone? Sun Yinger asked. She didn't expect this to be Jiang Yingying's wish. However, such a simple wish was exactly what she wanted. She, the chick phoenix, had killed countless people. Killing one person was too easy for her. Moreover, Jiang Yingying was only a 16-year-old girl. How could a 16-year-old high school student know a big shot? You don't want me to kill your grandfather, do you? Martial Sage Jiang? Lu Renfeng gripped the scalpel and suddenly laughed evilly. It's not impossible, although it's difficult. But I can still do it. No. Why would I kill my grandfather? The person I want to kill is someone who bullied me. Sun Yinger said. Oh. Not Martial Sage Jiang? That's a pity. But since it's your wish, I'll fulfill it for you. It's fate that brought us together. Lu Renfeng blinked, her expression terrifying. Tell me, what's that person's name? Where does he live? His name is Wang Ying. Wang as in Wang Ba. Ying as in Ying. He lives in a villa on East Huang Road. Sun Yinger blurted out the address of the Wang family's small villa. Got it. Lu Renfeng nodded and smiled. After I take out your spirit root, I'll take out your brain tissue and preserve it. Why do I have to take out his brain tissue? Of course, when I bring him to you. Don't you want to witness his death with your own eyes? As long as I connect your brain tissue to a visual sensor, you'll be able to see it with your own eyes. When the time comes, he'll kneel in front of you like a dying dog, begging for mercy. Lotus Sun and Sun Yinger, at that moment, Lu Renfeng laughed sinisterly. It'll definitely be a wonderful sight. Lotus Sun and Sun Yinger, hearing this, Sun Yinger couldn't help shuddering. Sure enough, the madwoman in front of him was a serious pervert. Perhaps when Lu Renfeng said this, she didn't realize that danger had already descended. To be honest, Wang Ying really hadn't wanted to come. Lying on Wang Ling's bed with his eyes closed, he had been spying on what was going on here. He had wanted to see Sun Yinger's embarrassed expression as she let herself be trampled upon. But he hadn't expected to hear Lu Renfeng's arrogant words. Considering that so many people had already made a move, he hadn't made a move out of consideration for the balance of power. Young people still had to talk about martial ethics. But now, he was going back on his word. Lu Renfeng must die. Young people, talk about martial ethics my ass. Just as Lu Renfeng was about to cut down, a hand suddenly pressed down on Madame Phoenix's shoulder. From Sun Yinger's point of view, she couldn't see the murderous face of the youngster standing behind Lu Renfeng at that moment. However, she recognized that hand at first glance. It was Wang Ying's. Chapter 1633. A very powerful aura. The moment Wang Ying's palm came down, Lu Renfeng couldn't stop the cold sweat from dripping down her forehead. Who are you? The chief of the intelligence department behind her was startled. Wang Ying had appeared too suddenly, like a ghost. He wanted to fight back in an attempt to protect Lu Renfeng, but his body was frozen in place. This wasn't because Wang Ying had used some kind of body immobilizing spell, but because he was trembling from the depths of his soul. The huge gap in battle strength made Hang Chuan feel as if his blood had frozen in that short instant. Then, his body began to tremble, and he gradually stopped thinking. Wang Ying couldn't even be bothered with this small fry. He only wanted to get back at Lu Renfeng, so he pinched her shoulder like he was pinching a little chick. Old woman, how do you want to die? How did you get in? Lu Renfeng's face was pale. She had the highest authority in the restricted area of the lab, and there were barriers everywhere. Ordinary cultivators couldn't get in, whether by going through walls, shrinking, or teleporting. Wang Ying's sudden appearance had terrified her. What she didn't know was that there was a chain between shadows. Sun Yinger's body had already been imprinted by Wang Ying, so no matter where she went, Wang Ying would know it clearly. How did I get in? Can't I enter this lousy place whenever I want? Wang Ying snorted. Without any superfluous words, the next moment, he reached out and grabbed Lu Renfeng's head. There was a crack. Lu Renfeng's head was crushed in an instant, like a rotten orange that had burst open. This, CEO-ing, how did you kill her? Lotus Sun was also sweating profusely. She hadn't expected the battle to be over before it had even started. Meanwhile, the rest of the people in Phoenix's lab hadn't expected this either. The Allied army hadn't surrounded them yet, but Wang Ying had actually charged in and set the crystal on fire. Young man. He really didn't care about martial ethics. This kind of damned old woman deserves to die. Wang Ying snorted. Also, she's very cunning. I didn't kill her. This should be a fake body. Fake body? Lotus Sun was puzzled. But it really isn't that different from the real body. With that, Wang Ying reached out and tore off Lu Renfeng's right leg on the spot. Lotus Sun hurriedly covered her eyes. The result was unexpected. After the seemingly violent movement of removing the leg, there was not a single drop of blood, only the sound of various gears falling to the ground. The right leg had been torn apart by Wang Ying, and the catheter connected to it had been instantly torn apart, dripping orange mucus. This is... Lotus Sun was puzzled. It's the androids, Wang Ying said, holding her chin. He checked Lu Renfeng's leg that had been torn off and saw the number 010 written on it. It was also the first time he had seen androids. To be honest, Lu Renfeng's technological means also shocked Wang Ying. If he hadn't reached out and touched Lu Renfeng's body, he wouldn't have thought that this Lu Renfeng was fake. Based on her aura alone, number 010 Lu Renfeng was no different from an ordinary human. This was different from the head of State 001 humanoid combat robot that Wang Ming was developing. The combat robot was made up of all kinds of spare parts. It was a pure mechanical-type magic treasure. No matter how realistic its appearance was, it could still be seen at a glance. But Lu Renfeng's android technology had the technical ability to pass off the fake as the real thing. Sun Yinger got up from the operating table timidly. She didn't care about what was happening at all, but was afraid of Wang Ying. Her conversation with Lu Renfeng just now was in fact a way to kill with a borrowed knife. She had initially just wanted to test whether Wang Ying was spying on them. It was just that she hadn't expected this man to actually show up after this test. Don't hit me, oh, Sun Yinger shrank back in fear. Wang Ying's lips curled up, and he strode forward to pinch the girl's cheek with one hand. I'll deal with you later. After saying that, he abruptly lowered his head and swiftly planted a kiss on the girl's soft lips. Sun Yinger's mind went blank with this kiss. At the same time, the person whose mind went blank with Sun Yinger was none other than Lotus Sunday. She felt as if her head had been struck by an earth-shattering blow, and she suddenly felt as if she had been struck by a violent blow. Young people nowadays weren't just unethical in martial arts. They were also unethical in kissing. When she quickly came back to her senses, her cheeks were red. The main thing was that Sun Yinger and Wang Ying were very similar to her, and Wang Ying's overbearing kiss gave Lotus Sun the illusion that it was Wang Ling kissing her for a brief moment. Her cheeks instantly turned red, and she felt as if a fire had been lit on her face, which instantly burned all the way to her ears. This Lu Renfeng is fake. And now, our first task is to ferret out the real one. It was still Wang Ying who broke the silence first. Looking at her burning face, he couldn't help laughing. "Hey, Miss Sun, don't think so much. It's better to act than to be moved, and you won't be able to wait. It's better for you to take the initiative and directly kiss him." How can I do that?" Lotus Sun's face turned even redder. "Do I need to get permission to like someone?" Wang Ying laughed. "Think about it yourself." Lotus Sun, to be honest, it wasn't that Lotus Sun hadn't thought about taking the initiative to kiss Prince Ling, but she had always felt that it would be too difficult. Kissing was all about the atmosphere. As long as the atmosphere was right, it would naturally come. If she just pounced on him and bit him, she would definitely be labeled a crazy girl. Chapter 1634. A large number of Lu Renfeng cyborgs poured out from every corner of the forbidden laboratory. As if they had been prepared beforehand, they appeared in the corridors and filled them up like sardines, like a subway during the morning rush hour. Wang Ying raised an arm and grabbed a Lu Renfeng's throat from a distance, then gently squeezed her hand. In an instant, the heads of these cyborgs rolled to the ground like watermelons. Then, these dead cyborgs were quickly replaced by new cyborgs. They had the same faces as Lu Renfeng, but they didn't have the slightest emotion. Seeing their companions fall to the ground, the surviving cyborgs around them would pick up the broken parts and throw them into the recycling tunnels of the forbidden laboratory. Wang Ying didn't know how many doppelgangers the real Lu Renfeng had created for herself, but judging from the wave after wave, there were definitely tens of thousands of them. Sun Yinger, how many did this crazy woman create for herself? Wang Ying, it seems that this woman has an emergency plan. It's possible that she wants to open the door to the infinite secret realm from the front. But I heard earlier that it won't be easy to open the entrance to this secret realm. It requires a large amount of spirit energy, Lotus Sun said. Indeed, there aren't many people who can open the entrance to this secret realm on their own. At that moment, Wang Ying thought of something. But it's different if there are many of them. I think it's better to report this to Battle's sect as soon as possible. Let's not get involved in what happens next. Let's just wait for things to end smoothly. He was Wang Ling's shadow, and their minds were connected. Just before he said this, he also knew at the same time that it was the truth. That man was finally ready to make his move. Wang Ying's appearance was a huge surprise for Lu Renfeng. She hadn't expected to be stopped by a youngster who had suddenly appeared just as she was about to open the infinite secret realm. But fortunately, she still had an emergency plan. As long as her original body wasn't found, she hadn't lost this battle yet. In Shou Chang's private laboratory, several cyborgs Lu Renfeng were in complete control. Heh. Junior brother Wulong, long time no see. Lu Renfeng linked her original body's will to the brain tissue of one of the cyborgs, thus temporarily controlling it. When the androids rushed in, Shoucheng realized that the situation was not good. There was an emergency escape button in his laboratory. Just as he was about to press it, one of the androids kicked his abdomen, shattering his dream on the spot. "Senior sister, you can't keep making mistakes. Are you willing to call me senior sister now?" Lu Renfeng couldn't help but laugh out loud. An artificial spirit root is my lifelong dream. Now that I've obtained this core technology, all I need to do is find the materials in that arcane realm. According to Lu Renfeng's original plan, she had planned to use Jiang Yingying to analyze the key to the infinite arcanum and enter through the back door. But this plan had just been ruined because of Wang Ying. Right now, Lu Renfeng had to activate the emergency plan. That was to break through the concealed zone head-on by using a defensive method. She had been secretly observing Shou Chang's private laboratory for a long time. She also knew that Shou Chang's current plan was to break through from the front. However, it was not easy to open the door of the infinite secret realm. This required a one-time injection of spiritual energy that far exceeded the current level of the cultivators on Earth. Even that senior behind her couldn't provide such an explosive output of spirit power in a short period of time. Senior sister, you should know that you're already surrounded, right? You have nowhere to retreat to. Shou Chang said, battle sect. And those sky-level sect leaders have already surrounded your laboratory so tightly that not even a drop of water can trickle through. Do you think I'm completely unaware of what's going on outside? At that moment, Lu Renfeng laughed again. As long as my real body hasn't been found, I haven't lost yet. What's more, do you think I didn't anticipate this situation? Huaxiu Alliance has been watching me for a long time. It can be said that I expected them to surround my laboratory in the northern suburbs. Of course, if I had to make a mistake, it would be that I really didn't expect so many people to come. That was what she said. But in fact, she was still suppressing a lot of anger in her heart. Because of what had happened outside, including the intelligence department's mistaken capture of Lotus Sunday. She only found out about it after her mental link with number 010 Lu Renfeng had been severed because of Wang Ying. If it hadn't been for Wang Ying, she might still be in the dark. Who knew what this bunch of good-for-nothings in the intelligence department were doing? They could even capture a little girl by mistake. As for the large numbers of the Cultivator Alliance army surrounding the northern suburbs, Lu Renfeng was indeed surprised. But she wasn't flustered at all. Instead, there was a look of excitement on her face that made Shou Chang feel extremely uneasy. It doesn't matter if there are more people. The more people there are, the better it is for me. Lu Renfeng's second plan was to take advantage of Huaxiu Alliance's encirclement and suppression to use these cultivators' spirit power to forcibly break through the main entrance to the Infinity Secret Realm. But the second plan actually had its risks. If Huaxiu Alliance didn't send enough people, even if she had a way to squeeze these cultivators dry of their spirit power, it might not be enough to pry open the door to the Infinity Secret Realm. But now, she felt that the situation was different. Hundreds of thousands of the Cultivator Alliance army were now surrounding Phoenix Sun's laboratory in the northern suburbs. The ordinary cultivators who had come as reinforcements were at the Golden Core stage at the very least. Not to mention the sky-level sect leaders who were in the circle. Senior sister, don't tell me you want to. At that moment, Shou Chang's expression changed dramatically as he finally realized what on earth Lu Renfeng was up to. He. Lu Renfeng continued to cover her mouth and chuckle through the android. The heavens are truly on my side. In order to rescue that Miss Lotus Sun, they had actually sent so many people without thinking. If the final result of this battle was to go for wool and come home shorn, I think this Huaxiu Alliance's prestige will be swept away. At that moment, in the battle's Sex Command Center, all the members of the Alliance army participating in this battle had turned into dense red dots on the satellite map on a huge screen. From a commander's point of view, Cone had never commanded such a rich battle in his previous 8 lifetimes. But for such a large number of Alliance soldiers to be placed in his hands alone was a test of his ability to withstand pressure and command. He looked at the blinking light markers on the map and frowned slightly. Dao Monarch, I think something's wrong. Our Alliance army has already formed a dumpling encirclement. But Lu Renfeng's side isn't putting up the slightest resistance. I can't help but feel that there's some kind of conspiracy behind this. As expected of the senior monarch's chosen one. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch smiled, looking relaxed and content. This. Dao Monarch has already discovered it. Cone was speechless. At the end of the day, this Auntie-Lu just wanted to enter the secret realm to steal materials. Now her real body is nowhere to be found, and a large number of androids are pouring out of the Forbidden Zone laboratory. There's no point in catching those androids. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch said, there's a saying, close the door and beat the dog. To use a more cultured term, it's like catching a turtle in a jar. Cone, Dao Monarch, you mean? Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch smiled. Just let the Alliance army beat them at their own game. Because at that moment, a pretty boy had already entered the infinite's secret realm ahead of time. He was waiting at that entrance for Lu Renfeng's real body to come in, of course, in order not to delay his homework. This pretty boy even moved his desk over and wrote while he waited. Chapter 1635. Although he had said that he didn't want to get involved in this matter, he had never thought that in the end, he would still get involved. He really wasn't thinking about any of this. His mind was full of homework, exercises, and the upcoming monthly exam. But he didn't know why. His body started to move involuntarily. He knew that Lu Renfeng had come for the infinite's secret realm, so the easiest way to find her real body was to wait for her. Now that the secret realm had finally been opened, her real body would definitely show itself and take a look. Another advantage was that apart from him, there was no one else at the entrance to the secret realm, which would give him a cover to hide his strength and fame. It would be too high profile and troublesome to follow the team to capture Lu Renfeng's real body. It would be better to wait for this crazy grandma to walk right into the trap. Thus, he decided to enter the infinite's secret realm right away. But he had heard that it wasn't easy to open the infinite's secret realm, and that a huge amount of spirit energy was needed to open the door. For this reason, Shoucheng and Lu Renfeng had racked their brains to find a way to open the infinite's secret realm. Wang Ling believed it. He used his king's eye to lock onto the coordinates of the secret realm's entrance. Then, a magnificent gate to the infinite's secret realm appeared in front of him. The ancient door frame was densely covered in abstruse runes that Wang Ling had never seen before. There were too many secret realms in the universe to count. After all, Wang Ling was just a kid, and hadn't visited all of them. In order to explore a secret realm and obtain immortal opportunities to improve their cultivation, ordinary cultivators were all determined to rush in, for fear that if they were one step too late, the treasures in the secret realm would be snatched away by someone else. But Wang Ling was different. He wasn't interested in secret realms, because everything in them could be found in his Wang Zhibao pants. Thus, he didn't know much about the infinite's secret realm. He had heard from Shoucheng and Lu Renfeng that it would take a huge amount of spirit power to enter. Faced with the gate to the infinite's secret realm, Wang Ling had a serious expression on his face. Then, he rolled up his sleeves and violently pushed the door inward. There was a loud bang. Wang Ling saw the gate to the infinite's secret realm collapse with a loud bang. Not only that, even the door frame was cracked. Sure enough, he had thought too much. He had clearly only used a little bit of his strength. Only the heavens knew that the gate to the mystic realm could not withstand the pressure. Thus, before moving the desk into the entrance of the secret land, he had also used the great repair spell to repair the door that had been torn down so that everything looked so natural. In the Battle Sex Command Center, Wang Ling's "Catch a Turtle in a Jar" was fully deployed under Keon's encrypted instructions. His face was flushed, and there was a tinge of nervousness in his excitement. Large-scale command was a great test of one's ability to command. The Alliance Army's operation this time looked like it had been organized to rescue Lotus Sun, but Huaxiao Alliance actually had other considerations. From a 1,000-layer cake perspective, the second layer on Huaxiao Alliance's side naturally wanted to capture Lu Renfeng alive. If this crazy grandmother used her creative ability on the right path, she would indeed be a promising talent. Third, Huaxiao Alliance wanted to use Battle Sect as a medium to see the ultimate scale and combat ability of the Alliance Army. This was purely from the perspective of a cultivation strategic deployment. Huaxiao Alliance had always advocated a love of peace. Every year, the profits it generated were used for the construction of cultivation infrastructure, and only a small portion was invested in military defense. The current mainstream view in the cultivation world was that military defense could in fact be replaced in another way. For example, they could unite private sects among the people and turn them into one family. Just like the current Alliance Army. But it would be a little too formal to organize such a large-scale Alliance Army in the name of Huaxiao Alliance's people. So at this time, the necessity of Battle Sect's existence manifested itself. When grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had gone to pull in investments back then, Huaxiao Alliance had decided to invest because of this consideration. The sky-level sects had joined together to block the development of the earth-level and black-level sects below them. This kind of behavior was very detrimental to the operation and development of private sections. Thus, at this time, a super sect that could surpass sky level was needed to set an example and form an unshakable force in all aspects. In the end, it would become a hemp rope that would tightly link the other sects together. Thus, the overall planning and coordination of sects in the cultivation world was also a subject of study. Of course, for a sect to develop, it definitely wouldn't be enough to rely on funds alone. It also needed a certain amount of talent. Take the Alliance Army this time for example. Through this small-scale Alliance Army battle, the secret mission that Cowan and Crispy Noodles had received was to unearth cultivators who could be used in the cultivation world. Most of these talents were still buried, and their current value could only be discovered by Bo Lu. Once Cowan and Crispy Noodles' Dao Monarch locked onto a candidate, they would only record it down first. Next, it was up to the sect's Ministry of Commerce to communicate and negotiate the transfer of disciples between sections. Nowadays, Battle's sect was rich and overbearing. In theory, as long as they had enough money, there was no one they couldn't negotiate with. Has Mr. Cowan discovered any outstanding seedlings? Crispy Noodles' Dao Monarch asked as he looked at the screen in front of him in front of the command platform. No, not for the time being. Cowan shook his head. Looking at the few cameras that were switching now, it didn't seem like he had taken a fancy to anyone at first glance. The cultivators in the Alliance Army were generally relatively young, and their average realm was at the Golden Core stage. The Golden Core stage actually didn't seem like much of a trick. The most important thing was that although the northern suburb laboratory had been surrounded, the attack order hadn't been issued yet. Without a fight, it was very hard to determine the value of these cultivators. What do you think, Crispy Noodles' Dao Monarch? Cowan asked at that moment. I found one. Crispy Noodles' Dao Monarch's gaze fell on a young cultivator on the screen. After that, the system's smart tracking system directly focused on this person and scanned him accurately. Very quickly, this young cultivator's name appeared on the screen on the right. Heavenly Spring Sect, Li Huaxian, Heavenly Spring Sect? Cowan frowned. This sect's ranking was pretty low. Because it was just a black-level sect. The attack order hasn't been issued yet, and it's very bad for one's mentality. Look at this person, he's neither arrogant nor impetuous, and his face is always indifferent. This state of mind is already very rare, Crispy Noodles' Dao Monarch said. Of course, his words were pure nonsense. Given his eyesight, he could pretty much see through these cultivators with one sweep of his eyes. As Wang Ling's real clone, Crispy Noodles had a natural ability to read people. But this ability couldn't be explained clearly. So he had to find a reason to explain it. In the cultivation world, the most illusory reason was state of mind. At first, it sounded very mysterious, but it also seemed to make some sense. It was like the horoscope and psychological tests on the market. This was also known as the Barnum effect. Chapter 1636. The strategic reserve of talents was something that every sect would do, and the key was whether the two sides of the transaction valued talents enough. There were times when some small sects would let go of a big fish for the sake of temporary benefits. Li Huaxian was a talent personally hand-picked by Crispy Noodles' Dao Monarch, so Qion naturally wasn't worried about him in all aspects. However, compared to the other sects, it was not an easy task for the Battle sect to poach them. How could a super sect possibly take a fancy to a disciple from a profound sect? If we were to poach him too openly, we would only alert the enemy and tell them that this Li Huaxian is a rare talent and that our war sect is definitely going to have him. This way, Li Huaxian's value would be raised to an extremely high level in a short period of time, and in the end, it would put the war sect in a passive situation. Have you thought about the matter of poaching people, Immortal? I don't think it's easy, Kun said as he stared at Li Huaxian on the screen. Little Silver, Crispy Noodles' Dao Monarch said bluntly. Little Silver? Team leader Ian? Actually, Qion didn't know much about Little Silver. He hadn't been in the Battle sect for a long time, so he didn't know many of the sect's elders and disciples. But he did know this team leader Een. This was a member of the war sect's core team, and he was in charge of the matters regarding the spirit beast group. Furthermore, he knew that this leader Een had been living at grenade-throwing senior Immortal's place the entire time before Battle's sect had its own spirit beast peak. Even now, after the completion of the spirit beast peak, it was said that this mysterious and unfathomable team leader Een still liked to stay at his old place. Leader Een, can he do it? He always seems very aloof. Kun didn't know Little Silver well, so Crispy Noodles couldn't help laughing when he heard this. Little Silver, aloof? Of course, that did not exist. In the entire Battle sect, apart from Ling Jinren, was there anyone more lively and adorable than Little Silver? Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch admitted that he didn't. The natural affinity of a holy beast was the key to Little Silver's negotiation. Moreover, as the leader of the spirit beast group, most of the time he went to other sects, he would be aiming for the spirit beast exchange. Basically, it was very difficult for people to think that he was here to poach people. Well, perfected monarch, of course you have your own considerations. Just watch the show, said Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch. He counted with his fingers and stared at the screen in front of him. It should be about time. Lu Renfeng would probably be tempted. The underground passageways of Phoenix's laboratory extended in all directions. Lu Renfeng's original purpose in designing this was to establish an encrypted passageway into the underground, and it was also out of consideration for the layout of Plan Number 2. These underground tunnels extended for a very long distance. At this moment, all the android Lu Renfeng came out in full force, each carrying a spirit stone and an array flag. Both Li Xian and Zhang Ziden cast invisibility spells on themselves and looked down from the sky. He could clearly see the layout of the androids after Lu Renfeng passed through various secret passages. The outermost layer of this secret passage was a very standard circle. Without even looking, one could tell that it was an array disk. It was just that Lu Renfeng would not be able to set up such a large array formation with her own strength. Energy formation of all illumination? Li Xian carefully observed the layout and details of the formation, and soon associated it with the origin of this formation. This was a spirit-gathering formation that could absorb the spirit energy of all the cultivators inside it, and was divided into two types, voluntary contribution and forced extraction. If a cultivator standing inside the formation voluntarily contributed, he only needed to raise his hands above his head. But Lu Renfeng obviously wouldn't do that. In order to open the infinite's secret realm, she could only force extraction. Looks like it's confirmed. Zhang Ziden said, this Lu Renfeng really has an ancient brother behind her, but I don't know who this brother is. I remember that the energy formation of all illumination was developed by the Heartless Ancestor, and it's said that he only passed it on to his disciples. But the Heartless Ancestor himself is now locked up in the corpse-wrapping painting. The corners of Li Xian's mouth twitched, and he said rather helplessly, and that guy used to say every day that he wanted to take a disciple, but so far I've never heard who his disciple is. Speaking of the Heartless Ancestor, he was also an all-powerful powerhouse in ancient times. But unfortunately, the Heartless Ancestor had a small problem, and that was that he was very stingy. There was a banquet where the Heartless Ancestor invited everyone, including Dao Ancestor Wang. In order to save money, he bought a lot of fake wine from a wine merchant and only let Dao Ancestor Wang drink the real wine. In the end, Dao Ancestor Wang's wine gourd was somehow switched at the banquet. Then, there were only 5 sounds of dun, 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 and the gourd of fake wine was drunk by Dao Ancestor Wang. And then, there was no, and then, Dao Ancestor Wang, who had drunk the fake wine, put the Heartless Ancestor and the wine merchant into the corpse-wrapping painting on the spot. Looking back at that period of history, Li Xian couldn't help but sigh. Why did you provoke such a good person? At this moment, there was a sudden exclamation on the battlefield in the northern suburbs, which had been silent for a long time. What's this? Some cultivators noticed that something was wrong, and the expressions on the faces of those sky-level sect masters all looked terrified. It's a big formation. A big formation that can cover the northern suburbs. What? how could Lu Renfeng have the ability to set up such a big formation? Each and every one of them looked panic-stricken, which stupefied Keon in the command center. Because this was all within the scope of the plan, in the end, he hadn't expected these sky-level sect masters and their disciples to be so good at acting. At that moment, each and every one of them contributed their outstanding acting skills to the fullest. My spirit energy is being sucked out. No, I can feel my life slipping away. The cultivators trapped in the formation cried out one after another, their expressions as if they were about to die. In fact, their spirit energy hadn't been sucked out. The spirit energy that Lu Renfeng had absorbed had all been provided by Wang Ling. At that moment, he was crouching at the entrance to the secret land. As he read the exercises in front of him, he raised both hands to transmit his spirit energy over. It's done. Lu Renfeng, who was guarding the lab, looked pleasantly surprised through the android. The amount of spirit energy that the array had absorbed was too much. It was far beyond his imagination. Ha 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 ha. She couldn't stop laughing wildly. I never thought that I, Lu Renfeng, would actually succeed. The cultivation world will soon welcome a new generation of phoenix chicks. That will be the beginning of a new era for me, Lu Renfeng. As soon as his voice fell, the controlled android quickly regained its silence. It looked like Lu Renfeng had already withdrawn the mental link with her real body and was ready to act on her own. Shou Chong was pressed down on the ground by several androids and couldn't move. At that moment, all his hopes were dashed, and he only felt that the situation was hopeless. Bzzzt. There was a bang. When the entrance to the secret land opened at the location which Lu Renfeng had set in advance, this crazy woman rubbed her hands together and couldn't hide the excitement on her face as she stepped in. She thought that when she opened the door, she would see a dazzling new world. In the end, what she saw was a teenager doing homework at a desk. Lu Renfeng laughed. I never thought that there would be a doorman in this infinite secret land. At that moment, Wang Ling raised his head to look at her. After confirming that this was Lu Renfeng's real body, he used just one look to firmly block the door to the secret land behind Lu Renfeng. In that instant, a terrifying pressure extinguished all of Lu Renfeng's excitement. Wait, this situation didn't seem right? Chapter 1637. The truth was that Wang Ling wasn't in a hurry to exert pressure on her. He just raised his gaze to meet Lu Renfeng's indifferent gaze. In that moment, this young Madame Phoenix's mind instantly went blank. She was so shocked that she couldn't speak. She didn't understand what was happening in front of her. She felt as if she had stepped into an abyss the moment she stepped into the mystic realm. She was clearly being stared at by a young man who looked like a high school student. How could she, Madame Phoenix, feel fear? Lu Renfeng couldn't believe what she was seeing. She had chased after the infinite mystic realm for far too long. Now that she had finally made it in, her path was blocked by a young man. Lu Renfeng could not accept this fact no matter what. I will never kill those boys who are good-looking. Lu Renfeng stared at the pressure and said. As she spoke, she deliberately avoided Wang Ling's gaze. That was the only way she could be a little more normal. Although at this moment, her body was still trembling uncontrollably. Wang Ling could see that Lu Renfeng actually had a backup plan. As a well-known underground scientist both at home and abroad, Madame Phoenix definitely wasn't unprepared for the fact that she dared to appear in her true form. Battle Sect and Huaxiao Alliance's request was to capture Lu Renfeng alive, so Wang Ling naturally had to be careful not to go overboard. If he killed her, it wouldn't be easy to clean up the mess. Thus, Wang Ling continued to stare at Lu Renfeng, intending to watch the ants dance and see what on earth Lu Renfeng would perform next. Child, I only need the materials in this mystic realm. With these materials and my skills, I can become the richest person in the world. At this moment, Lu Renfeng's tone changed, and she actually began to walk the gentle path. If you don't stop me, I can guarantee you a luxurious life for the rest of your life. You look young, so there should be a lot of things you want to buy, right? If possible, Lu Renfeng also hoped that they wouldn't start a fight here. She didn't know Wang Ling's background, nor did she know how he had come to this infinite secret realm. But one thing was certain, Wang Ling was very young. On Lu Renfeng, there was an AI intelligent analysis system in her body. While Lu Renfeng and Wang Ling were talking, she had already scanned Wang Ling's face and found the corresponding answer from the big data in the National Treasury. Although he did not know why the photo was a bunch of mosaics, however, the information indeed showed that the young man in front of him was only at the foundation establishment stage. Of course, Lu Renfeng was well aware that Wang Ling was probably hiding his true realm. Otherwise, why would he make her feel so oppressed? How interesting. He's just a 16-year-old boy, but he actually has the battle prowess of a soul formation cultivator? After the initial panic, Lu Renfeng, who had obtained the data, revealed a hint of excitement in her heart. A 16-year-old youth with the combat power of a soul formation cultivator, if this matter were to be spread, it would definitely cause an uproar in the world. However, she was not prepared to reveal this matter. Instead, he came up with a new plan. If she could trick Wang Ling, or defeat him here, Wang Ling wouldn't be able to escape. Then, she would cut open Wang Ling's stomach and take out his spirit root for research. Finally, she would use the core technology of artificial spirit root to replicate it. Then, soon, she would have an army of soul formation stage cultivators in her hands. The more Lu Renfeng thought about it, the more excited she became. The corners of her mouth couldn't help but curl up crazily. Therefore, after a short period of consideration, she changed her previous offensive strategy and decided to use the temptation of benefits to see if she could make a breakthrough. Because after her AI analysis, she was sure that Wang Ling was indeed only 16 years old. Although there were countless elixirs and magic treasures for beauty enhancement in the cultivation world nowadays, the rising sun chi that belonged to a young man couldn't be deceived. The older a cultivator was, the less rising sun chi they had. This was a special way of distinguishing between young cultivators. Even though he was a genius at the soul formation stage, he was only 16 years old in the end. She felt that given Wang Ling's state of mind, he might not be able to withstand the temptation of this colorful world. "Child, I'm old enough to be your grandmother, so I really don't want to fight you." "So, I really don't want to fight with you." Lu Renfeng smiled and said, "You should have a lot of things you want to buy, right? No matter what kind of magic treasure or luxury goods you like, as long as you like them, I can buy them for you. Apart from these, real estate, cars, toys, beautiful women, if you're willing to cooperate with me, you can choose whatever you want. There are also countless snacks." Hearing the word snacks, Wang Ling blinked. A drop of cold sweat trickled down his cheek as he cursed in his heart. He had actually been a little shaken just now. But very quickly, Wang Ling regained his composure. Fortunately, he always had a poker face, so even if Lu Renfeng used her smart chi to directly scan and analyze his face, she wouldn't be able to detect any subtle changes. Because of Wang Ling's long silence, the situation was once again at an impasse. He's not going to accept these temptations. Lu Renfeng also felt that it was inconceivable. She hadn't expected Wang Ling's Dao heart to be so stable. However, in a situation where she couldn't tempt him, she only had one last option left. Lu Renfeng didn't know where on earth Wang Ling had come from. But if a mere soul formation cultivator wanted to stop her, he was looking down on her, the young Madame Phoenix, too much. Since negotiations have failed, Grandma has no other choice. You're my grandson, so Grandma will try to be as gentle as possible when I make a move. Wang Ling, while she was speaking, Lu Renfeng stretched out her hand, and a light condensed in her palm. Wang Ling noticed that Lu Renfeng had a special ring on her finger. This was a spatial magic treasure that used space-folding techniques. Unlike those storage rings, this ring could transfer items from a designated space to another space through a folding technique. And then, BZZT. The instant the light from the ring spread out, the space that resonated with it actually formed vortex wormholes in the walls of the void. In a short period of time, countless mechanical crawlers poured out of the wormholes. These mechanical crawlers swarmed out of space like locusts, spreading their mechanical wings and flying in the air. After Lu Renfeng clapped her hands, the mechanical crawlers instantly spread out and took root in the ground like dense raindrops. Magic bean soldiers, Lu Renfeng said calmly. Wang Ling saw these mechanical crawlers actually take root and sprout in this short period of time. In just a few seconds, this young Madame Phoenix swiftly summoned countless Lu Renfengs from the ground with the bean soldiers technique. Wang Ling could only estimate the number. At that moment, there were no less than 300,000 artificial humans gathered in the secret land. But no matter how many there were, they were just a bunch of scrap metal in Wang Ling's eyes. Seeing that Wang Ling's expression was still calm, Lu Renfeng couldn't help saying at that moment, "I know that my artificial humans might not be able to deal with you. But if everyone's strength can be combined, that's a different story." As soon as Lu Renfeng said this, she stretched out her hand and gently squeezed. Wang Ling saw these artificial humans actually start to transform on the spot. Holding each other's hands, they swiftly linked together and merged into one, actually transforming into an incomparably huge red mecha armor. Lu Renfeng's real body was already sitting inside this 50-meter-tall mecha armor during this transformation process. This Fire Phoenix mecha armor was Lu Renfeng's proudest creation. Using artificial spirit roots as a medium, the mecha's attributes would be amplified by 300,000 times. That was to say, as long as she sat in this mecha armor, even grenade-throwing senior Immortal, who was currently the strongest person on Earth and had reached the true venerated level, wouldn't be her match. On the other side, after hearing Lu Renfeng's thoughts, Wang Ling couldn't help sighing in his heart. He had never expected this young Madame Phoenix to actually compare herself to grenade-throwing senior Immortal. After all, for him, grenade-throwing senior Immortal was just a unit of combat strength. At that moment, the huge Fire Phoenix mecha armor blotted out the sky and covered Wang Ling like a boundless shadow. In the face of this mountain-like mecha armor, Wang Ling's mind suddenly went blank. It wasn't that he was afraid. It was that he didn't know where on earth he should start. Chapter 1638. In the space of a few breaths, Lu Renfeng had used the so-called bean soldiers method to assemble such a large army of androids, and in the blink of an eye, they had swiftly assembled into this 50-meter-tall mecha armor in front of Wang Ling. It wasn't hard for Wang Ling to see that Lu Renfeng had clearly been preparing for today's event for a long time. It was almost impossible to mass-produce androids of this scale in a short period of time, and it would take time. On the other hand, these androids weren't cheap. Given Lu Renfeng's accumulated foundation, Wang Ling felt that it would be very difficult for her to produce androids of this scale without the help of someone else. This was a woman who was afraid of poverty. Her words were filled with the evil flavor of capitalism. Wang Ling could see that Lu Renfeng wanted to use this to turn things around. With the almost inexhaustible resources in Infinite's secret realm, she would be able to build her own army of androids, and then vigorously develop an industrial chain for artificial spirit roots, which would go down in the annals of modern cultivation history. At that moment, Wang Ling sighed silently in his heart. It was a pity that this young Madame Phoenix had run into him. It was one thing for her to make some money, but Wang Ling didn't quite understand why some people just had to provoke him. In the air, Lu Renfeng's real body was linked to the Fire Phoenix mecha armor's spiritual will. She didn't need to use any buttons to control it, she just needed to place both hands on the special psychic pilot's seat, and she could control it as one. The massive Fire Phoenix mecha armor was a little more agile than Wang Ling had imagined. In the sky above the primeval forest of Infinite's secret realm, the melodious sound of a subwoofer cannon came from the Fire Phoenix mecha armor. Rather than calling it a song, it would be more accurate to call it a low and deep phoenix cry. Then, two projectile blades more than 10 meters wide popped out from the back of the mecha armor's arms. Accompanied by the subwoofer cannon song, the fiery red projectile blades were covered in a layer of red spirit light. This was a combination spell that combined sound waves with a magical effect, and was similar to the roar of some spirit beasts before a battle. At this particular frequency, apart from being able to produce a magical effect, it could also affect things around the battlefield. Lu Renfeng wanted to capture Wang Ling alive, which was why she had used this method. Under certain conditions, a phoenix cry of this particular frequency could induce hallucinations. Furthermore, she had already rearranged the frequency of the phoenix cry based on Wang Ling's current realm. He was sure that this was a sound wave that could suppress a soul formation cultivator. But in the face of such a powerful sound wave, Wang Ling's expression didn't change at all. He's not affected at all? Lu Renfeng was astonished. Then, he saw the young man, who was the size of an ant, standing on his tiptoes and ascending over 100 meters into the air before stopping. At the same time, the void changed, and Lu Renfeng saw her surroundings changing rapidly. The battlefield above the primeval jungle of the infinite mystery land was quickly transformed into the endless and deep universe. Lu Renfeng could see the Milky Way and even Earth, which was not far away. This wasn't a universe of the real world, but one that Wang Ling had constructed, and could be said to be a complete replica of the real world's universe. It was because there were no other living beings in this universe. Intrinsic spirit field? Within the fiery phoenix mecha, Lu Renfeng's eyes widened, and she was completely astonished by the boundless universe and the dazzling galaxy before her. She knew about the existence of intrinsic spirit fields. But she didn't know that the place she had been pulled into was the core world, which was even more powerful than an intrinsic spirit field. Although the fiery phoenix mecha was huge, it was as tiny as an ant in the backdrop of the universe. Although she was sitting in the mecha, her brain felt like it had stopped working. It was at this moment that Lu Renfeng realized with a start that Wang Ling's strength might be far beyond what she had imagined. "Who the hell are you?" Her voice started to tremble, and she started to launch a frenzied attack. In her helpless rage, 2 enchanted projectile blades shot out at an extremely high speed at the speed of sound to slash at Wang Ling's head. Wang Ling stood motionless on the spot. The 2 projectile blades attacked from left and right. The moment they struck his head, not even a single hair fell off his head, while the blades had already shattered into pieces. Lu Renfeng hadn't expected to be hit so hard. In her extreme panic, the fiery phoenix mecha fired even more fiercely at Wang Ling from all its outlets. Boom! 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 For a moment, Wang Ling's core world was filled with all kinds of explosions. The fiery phoenix mecha contained folded nanomissiles, which was also a black technology developed by Lu Renfeng. Even the explosive power of a nuclear bomb was only the size of a grain of rice, so the fiery phoenix mecha had a huge reserve of ammunition. Wang Ling didn't want to open the barrier at first, but after all, it wasn't worth it to dirty his school uniform, so he put up a spirit power field for himself. The nanomissiles bombarded the extremely thin barrier without even the slightest crack. Impossible. This is impossible. It was obvious that Lu Renfeng was already a little crazy. She clutched her head with a terrified expression on her face. Then, a dazzling holy light appeared behind Wang Ling. Lu Renfeng, this is, defeating the other party in the field they were most confident in was Wang Ling's usual method. That god of the grave had thought that he controlled time and space, but he had been locked in a fixed ending forever. He could jump out of time and space, but he couldn't escape the ending that Wang Ling had personally arranged for him. Just like the Lu Renfeng in front of him, being soldiers. It was obvious that this was one of Lu Renfeng's proudest skills. In a short period of time, through the combination of nanotechnology and cultivation space folding technology, androids with fleshly bodies were instantly created. In the eyes of other cultivators, this would indeed seem to be quite an incredible thing. At that moment, Wang Ling was standing in his own core world. Immortal holy light radiated from his back as he stood firm, like a god of the universe. Then, there was a hum. With Wang Ling as its center, this holy light turned into a circular shock wave, like a huge ripple in the center of the universe, which instantly extended hundreds of millions of light years away. Then, Lu Renfeng felt this dazzling light gradually dim. As this holy light dissipated, what appeared in front of Lu Renfeng was an incomparably terrifying scene. In front of her, she saw countless Wang Lings surrounding her. These clones that had been born from Wang Ling's body gave off cosmic starlight. Some were formed from meteorites, some were formed from stars, and most of them were formed from dust. Wang Ling's holy light turned all the dust within a radius of hundreds of millions of light years into himself. This was truly an innumerable number of Wang Ling's Wang Ling. It was impossible for her to tell them apart with the naked eye. Then, there was a bang. Wang Ling snapped his fingers. The countless clones scattered like the wind, turning back into the trillions of dust particles in the universe. Lu Renfeng was completely awake with this snap of Wang Ling's fingers. She thoroughly realized that her realm and that of the youngster in front of her weren't in the same dimension at all. Just like that. This underground scientist was the famous young phoenix madam, Lu Renfeng. Her heart was shaken to the core. She stopped thinking. P.S. How many people have stopped thinking already? Everyone, please post your answers directly in this chapter. Those who get it right can contact Big Faced Cat, the administrator of the book group, for a small red packet. Chapter 1639. Under the double assault of sight and spirit, there was a certain probability that the soul would short-circuit. The fact that this famous underground scientist had stopped thinking and was no longer struggling was a great help in carrying out the plan to capture Wang Ling alive. But Wang Ling somehow felt that things weren't that simple. He raised his hand and carefully used the great decomposition spell to slowly disintegrate the Fire Phoenix mecha armor from the outside to expose Lu Renfeng's body, which was hidden inside. At the same time, Wang Ling cast a temporary golden light of adaptation on Lu Renfeng so that her body could withstand all the pressure in space. She was an itinerant immortal, but at this level, she still couldn't fight in space. Of course, it wasn't that Wang Ling hadn't thought about directly digging out her heart, but he was afraid that the impact would be too great and Lu Renfeng would directly disappear. At this moment, Lu Renfeng was still in her original position. She sat there with her eyes wide open. Her expression was frozen in fear, and she looked like she had been petrified. Then, Wang Ling had directly summoned Odd Zhuo here. As expected of Shifu. Honestly speaking, Odd Zhuo wasn't surprised by the situation in front of him after he appeared. He had already expected this outcome. "I'll leave her to you," Wang Ling said with a nod. "Don't worry, Shifu. Just leave the aftermath to me." Odd Zhuo cupped his fists in a salute. This wasn't the first time he had been the scapegoat, and he was already very used to it. The only fly in the ointment this time was that Zhou Zi hadn't been able to make a contribution in this battle or show his face in front of Wang Ling or something. Odd Zhuo was extremely optimistic about Zhou Zi and was willing to take him in as a disciple, but Wang Ling wouldn't budge, so there was nothing he could do. The man in front of him was no longer the man he used to be. Previously, a crispy noodle snack's annual card had been enough. Bribing him with an annual card now probably wouldn't work. But he didn't show his thoughts in front of Wang Ling, and respectfully sent him off as usual before he stayed behind to deal with Lu Renfeng. Wang Ling shared a portion of the King's Eye's power with Odd Zhuo. One reason was so that Odd Zhuo could freely use the King's Eye's ability to travel freely in various spaces, and the other was to increase his battle strength. Of course, when it came down to it, it would be better for Odd Zhuo to clean up the mess for him. Lu Renfeng had seen Wang Ling's face, so she definitely had to tamper with this part of her memory, and she also had to change things about the core world. This was combat strength that had already surpassed Earth's realm. It would be very strange if Lu Renfeng poured everything out when she woke up. Therefore, in the infinite mystic realm, he revised almost all of Lu Renfeng's memories of the battle just now. After making sure that he did not miss anything, he heaved a sigh of relief. If Lu Renfeng woke up now, the person she had been fighting wouldn't be Wang Ling, but Odd Zhuo. There should be no problem now. Odd Zhuo wiped at his sweat. It wasn't his first time doing this, but he couldn't help feeling a little nervous. Tampering with memories could lead to mental disorder. Huaxiao Alliance had ordered Lu Renfeng to be captured alive because they knew that she could still be of use to them. Battle Sect Command Center. The moment Lu Renfeng's real body stepped into the infinite mystic realm, the Alliance army responsible for besieging the base finally blew the horn to attack. The members of the base in Phoenix's underground laboratory as well as Lu Renfeng's androids were all stupefied. The spirit energy of these cultivators had clearly been sucked away by the great array just now, but at that moment, each and every one of them actually crawled up from the ground and directly announced that they were going to attack. F***K. So was that an act just now? The members of the underground base all had incredulous looks on their faces. Lu Renfeng's real body was already under control, and the command center was left without a leader. In a split second, the entire underground laboratory that extended in all directions was a mess. Following Keon's intelligent deployment, the large-scale Alliance army surrounded the underground laboratory in an orderly manner. The capture operation lasted for several hours. Finally, he heaved a sigh of relief and collapsed with a tired expression. "It's finally over. No, there's actually one last step left," said Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch. The last step? Given Lu Renfeng's strength alone, she shouldn't have the guts to take such a risky action, said Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch. Dao Monarch, do you mean that there's another force behind this? Crispy Noodles nodded. It actually wasn't convenient for him to explain too much to Keon, so he could only leave it at that. But you don't have to worry, you did a great job commanding the operation this time. Senior Li Xian and Senior Zhang Zipei can handle the rest. Are they the two new elders? Keon's eyes lit up. He had heard of these two people's names before. Because they had suddenly joined Battle's sect and become elders all at once, a lot of people were curious about their origins. In addition, after Li Xian and Zhang Zipei joined Battle's sect, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had given them the position of guest elder. It was equivalent to some honorary professors in cultivation universities. It sounded like they were from Battle's sect, but it was in fact just a title. But this name was actually directly hanging out his net worth. This was because Li Xian and Zhang Zipei were currently the only two elders in Battle's sect in name. Their names had been famous in ancient times, but they weren't known in the modern cultivation world. Now that they had become honorary elders all of a sudden, the many speculations undoubtedly deepened the mystery of these two people. While Keon and Crispy Noodles were giving instructions, Li Xian and Zhang Zipei were also looking for traces of the person behind the scenes. Following the lead of the All Things Illuminating Vitality Array, the two of them found some clues based on the layout and technique of the array. Zhang Zizi smiled. Interesting. From the technique, it does seem like the work of that heartless ancestor. If it's him, he indeed has the ability to launch that Thousand Faces spell. But he's clearly already been locked up in the painting. He can only be a pile of bones now, said Li Xian. Zhang Zipei shook his head. Brother, you're being too absolute. Dao Ancestor Wang is indeed terrifyingly powerful, but there are no less than tens of thousands of people locked up in the corpse painting, hundreds of millions of ancient experts. Can you guarantee that this old thief won't fail miserably in an easy task? It's like an idol star who recently debuted and whose parents are revealed to be old thugs. There are no absolutes in this world. He deceived Dao Ancestor Wang, he's a genius. Li Xian sighed. Zhang Zipei, there's one more thing that makes me certain that he was behind all this. Li Xian, what is it? Zhang Zipei, remember those ancient divine weapons that the grave god summoned when Ling Zhenren and the grave god fought at the very beginning? Li Xian nodded. Of course I remember, that was the army that the grave god created. In the end, Dao Ancestor's Dharma image creature chased them down, and only a few hundred of them are left from that army of 10 million. Zhang Zipei, when Ling Zhenren synchronized the battle in the inner world just now, I saw Lu Renfeng's Fire Phoenix mecha armor, and felt that it was similar to that ancient divine weapon. Hearing this, Li Xian was shocked. So Ancestor Wuxin was the one who built these ancient divine weapons? Zhang Zipei, he was a famous mechanic in ancient times. Because all the parts on his body could be replaced, and his heart was also a mechanical heart, he got the nickname Wuxin. Li Xian, but how do you know so much? Zhang Zipei, his wife told me. Li Xian, brother Zipei, don't tell me. Zhang Zipei, let bygones be bygones. This old man hasn't been Sea King for many years. Li Xian. Chapter 1640. The name Wu Xin was also a well-known figure in ancient times. He was a well-known mechanic and had the nickname of half-divine soldier. In terms of popularity, he was not weaker than Zhang Zidan's reputation. If Wu Xin had not been locked up by Dao ancestor Wang, he would have had black technology far beyond modern cultivation civilization in ancient times. However, the timeline had changed after all. In the corpse-wrapping painting, the ancient powerhouses who were locked up by Dao ancestor Wang were now skeletons, and Wu Xin's image was actually very obvious, because no one had gears in their bones. After Zhang Zidan was locked up in the corpse-wrapping painting, he found that Wu Xin's condition was not very good. As far as he was concerned, Wu Xin had always been a relatively open and active person, but after being locked up in the painting, he seemed to be a little autistic. He did not expect Wu Xin's ability to withstand pressure to be so poor, so Zhang Zidan did not care too much at that time. After all, not everyone was as shameless as him. But now, combined with many things in front of him, Zhang Zidan was more and more sure of his guess, that the Wu Xin ancestor locked in the corpse-wrapping painting was definitely not himself. Because everyone knew that he was a half-divine soldier, who was imprisoned in the corpse-wrapping painting and turned into a skeleton with all kinds of parts on his body, but unexpectedly, these parts in the corpse-wrapping painting became the biggest camouflage. As the saying goes, a leaf can blind the eye. Zhang Zidan did not expect that he would be fooled by Wu Xin. This half-divine soldier is interesting. Zhang Zidan snickered. But with Dao ancestor Wang's strength, even if he was deceived at the beginning, he should be able to see it later. Li Xian was puzzled. Dao ancestor Wang, this old thief, was angry in a moment. After he calmed down, he would not pursue it. Zhang Zidan said, "Of course, there is another possibility, that is, he left Wu Xin outside for another purpose." All this time, Zhang Zizi still held a grudge against Dao ancestor Wang for sucking all the ancient experts into the corpse-wrapping painting without a word. It was reasonable to say that with Dao ancestor Wang's realm, he wouldn't be so narrow-minded. Moreover, Zhang Zizi felt that the matter with old God wasn't entirely his fault. He did like other people's wives, but he still respected the other party's wishes. Although he was a playboy, he didn't like to force others to have sex with him. If you can't get it, then use force. From Zhang Zipei's point of view, that was undoubtedly an action that would cause his butt to rot. It was true that he was dissatisfied with Dao ancestor Wang until now, but this string of actions of Dao ancestor Wang caused Zhang Ziqin to have no choice but to suspect that perhaps all of this was a trap. Moreover, only that man had the ability to set up a trap. Several minutes later, following the traces of the magic circle, Zhang Zidan and Li Xian approached the location of the North Pole. When they arrived at a certain coordinate, Li Xian suddenly stretched out his hand and pulled Zhang Zipei back. "Brother Zipei, be careful. I know. There's a void Dharma realm here." Zhang Zipei stood with his hands clasped behind his back, floating in the void with Li Xian. This was another technique that had been passed down from the ancient times. The essence of the void Dharma realm was in fact a smokescreen, and people with low realms wouldn't be able to sense it so easily. That was to say, someone had set up this barrier in the North Pole and was trying to secretly do something inside. Thus, it was very likely that the entire North Pole had already been transformed, and the vast expanse of icebergs and snow had probably long since been reduced to nothingness. "Should we go take a look?" Li Xian said with a frown. The space inside the void Dharma realm was completely independent and isolated from the outside world. Once the two of them went in and fell into a trap, they might not be able to return. Li Xian was still hesitant. After all, he and Zhang Zidan were carrying out a mission together. If they failed because they were too rash, some of his points would be deducted, and the loss outweighed the gain. "I've already reported our location to Mr. Zhua. If we can't get out, he'll think of another way." To Li Xian's surprise, Zhang Zidan, who had always been very reckless, was exceptionally cautious at this moment. "Since Brother Zidan has said so, let's go in and take a look. Do you think the heartless patriarch is inside?" "Most likely," Zhang Zidan said. It had been a long time since they had arrived on Earth, and the ancient experts were relatively more reclusive. If the heartless patriarch had come to Earth from ancient times, he would have chosen this North Pole long ago and taken root here. But this was just Zhang Zidan's guess. Lu Renfeng's incident had been nothing more than a trivial matter to Zhang Zidan. He hadn't expected it to actually involve ancient times, which instantly piqued Zhang Zidan's interest. There were too many mysteries left, and he and Li Xian could only solve them one by one. Was the ancient brother who had set up the array the heartless patriarch, who was known as a half-step divine weapon? And what was the heartless patriarch's purpose in taking Lu Renfeng as his disciple? These things could only be found out after they stepped into the void Dharma realm. When Li Xian and Zhang Zizi both stretched out their hands and touched the boundary of the illusory world of nothingness, the two figures instantly disappeared along with a spurt of mist, submerging into it. Zhang Zidan and Li Xian were greatly shocked by the scene in front of them. This, because what they saw in the void Dharma realm was a completely different scene. It was a city built of steel and concrete, shining with all kinds of neon lights, and countless mechanical flying objects hovering in the air in an orderly manner. It was actually another world inside the void Dharma realm. Li Xian and Zhang Zidan were stupefied and completely speechless. Because the scene in front of them was too cyberpunk, and very much like the online game they had seen Wei Ji play a few days ago. They had just arrived in modern cultivation society and had yet to fully adapt to it. This technology city in front of them, which looked like it had been built completely ahead of time, instantly left them dumbfounded once again. Meanwhile, on the other side, Audiobook received a report from Zhang Zidan. The void Dharma realm? Although Zhang Zidan and Li Xian were already on the move, Audiobook felt that this was a good opportunity to make a contribution. Of course, it wasn't because he wanted to make a contribution, but mainly because he wanted to help Zhou Zi. Given his current combat strength. Of course, it was mainly because he had the shared ability of the King's Eye. It wasn't a problem at all for him to do whatever he wanted. How is it? Can your legs move well? He asked as he looked at Zhou Zi. Zhou Zi's legs had grown very quickly because of the various nutritional supplements that Ryoko Kamiya and Lotus Sun had sent him. I feel like I can still grow a little taller, but it's no problem for me to move normally. Brother Zhua, Zhou Zi said. So, do you want to go out and cultivate with me? Zhua smiled. But didn't we just resolve the matter with Lu Renfeng? It's not about Lu Renfeng, it's about something else, Zhua said. And your performance on this mission may have something to do with whether or not you can become my disciple. Zhou Zi was instantly excited. I'm willing to go. Good. But you have to stay close to me during the operation, Zhua said. Understood. Zhou Zi bared his teeth. At that moment, this naive youngster still didn't know what he was about to see. Zhua then quickly sent a text message to Lotus Sun to inform her of the matter. The general content was a copy and paste of what Zhang Zidan had said. That was, if he and Zhou Zi didn't come out of the world of nothingness, after a while, he would think of a way to rescue them. Done. After confirming that the message had been delivered, Zhua breathed a slight sigh of relief. Then, he took out 5 sets of long johns from the wardrobe and gave them to Zhou Zi. These were all long johns which Wang Ling had personally enchanted. Furthermore, they were the upgraded version 3.0, so there was no need to hide one's head and limbs in the long johns, and they could still protect the whole body. Wang Ling had given Zhua a lot of them before, and today, he had taken out all his trump cards. Zhou Zi was alarmed. Brother Zhua, these are, Zhua, they're for you to save your life. After you put them on, even if we separate, no one can hurt you. Zhou Zi was doubtful. These are just long johns, will they work? Zhua laughed. When have I ever lied to you? Zhou Zi, but will we be gone for long? Do we have to bring so many clothes? Zhua, who told you to change? Put them all on. It's like a nesting doll, understand? Zhou Zi, at that moment, this naive youngster still didn't know that after putting on 5 enchanted layers of long johns, his armor value had already been raised to the maximum. Chapter 1641. Audiobook wasn't stupid, and was well aware of how dangerous this illusion world of nothingness was. Zhang Zidi and Li Xianke were both ancient almighties, but even they weren't completely confident before entering, and had even left behind information in advance. It was obvious that this illusion world wasn't as simple as it seemed. There would definitely be danger. If he went by himself, he wouldn't have to worry about anything because of the shared power of the King's Eye. However, if he were to bring Zhou Zi along, with Zhou Zi's strength, it would be no different from sending him to his death. However, after putting on 5 layers of version 3.0 Long John's, everything had changed, so sometimes, it wasn't because he was afraid of pain that he activated all his defenses. It was also possible that he was wearing too many Long Johns. Audiobook had already told Lotus Sun before setting off with Zhou Zi, but he hadn't revealed this to Camille or Yoko, because he didn't have any extra Long Johns in his inventory. The main thing was that it would be safer for one person to wear the 5 Long Johns, and it wouldn't be effective if they were worn separately. Most importantly, Camille or Yoko didn't like thick clothes, so he didn't tell her about bringing Zhou Zi to cultivate. She only said that she was going out with Zhou Zi and would be back soon. On the other side, Lotus Sun received a text message from Audiobook. She actually had no intention of betraying Audiobook, but the current situation was a little awkward, because Camille or Yoko just so happened to be next to her. Today, she had come to the villa where Camille or Yoko lived mainly to discuss buying Wang Ling a birthday present. December 26th. In other words, tomorrow. It was Wang Ling's birthday. Lotus Sun was struggling with what gift to give Wang Ling. In fact, it wasn't just Lotus Sun, the entire Battles sect was secretly preparing for a birthday present. If it was just simple crispy noodle snacks, it probably wouldn't be enough to satisfy this crispy noodle maniac's expanding needs. Perhaps other people's gifts weren't so exquisite. But she, apart from the gift, she also wanted to use it to convey her feelings to Wang Ling once again. However, she knew his personality. He would definitely not like a gift that was too flashy. So today, not long after Lu Renfeng's matter came to an end, she found Kwamiya Yoshiko to discuss the gift. They hadn't even officially discussed it yet. Just then, Audiobook happened to receive a text message. Him again. Why did he always bring him out? You didn't even bring me along. Ryoko Kwamiya crossed her arms and complained. Lotus Sun hadn't expected Camille or Yoko's eyesight to be so good. She was clearly sitting across from her, and when she glanced at her screen, the text message was written backwards. How could she see it so clearly? Yoshiko, your eyesight is so good, humph. If your Wang Ling were to send me a text message at this time, you would also be able to see it clearly, said Camille or Yoko. Sometimes, girls were more sensitive. This was in fact thanks to the fact that she had sent so many messages to Audiobook that whenever the word Audiobook appeared anywhere, even if it was written backwards, Ryoko would still be able to recognize it in a second. Ryoko Kamiya's words made Lotus Sun blush to her ears. What do you mean by, my royal order? I just realized that you've become bad, Ryoko. Ryoko Kamiya, is that my royal order? Lotus Sun, absolutely not. Ryoko Kamiya laughed. I'm just kidding. Look at how nervous you are. I already have him. As she spoke, she stared at the phone screen. But I still don't understand. Why is he so concerned about Zhou Zi? Isn't it just taking him in as a disciple? If he wants to take him in, he can. Because Wang Ling was involved, it was actually quite complicated, and it wasn't convenient for Lotus Sun to talk about it for the time being. After all, as far as Ryoko knew, Wang Ling was still Audiobook's disciple. But Lotus Sun felt that it wouldn't be too long before Ryoko learned the truth about Wang Ling's true strength. But in the end, Audiobook would have to come forward and confess this matter to Ryoko. It actually wasn't appropriate for her to come forward herself. At that moment, Lotus Sun sighed silently in her heart. She had asked Ryoko Kamiya out just to discuss the birthday present, but in the end, something else had come up, and now it looked like it would be very troublesome. She could only comfort her. After all, you're going out to cultivate together, and that place might be more dangerous. That's why he didn't bring you along. The more Ryoko thought about it, the more she felt that something was wrong. But the problem is that this Zhou realm is about the same as mine. Why can he go? 2 men. Do you think it's possible that they went to some indecent place? No way, Senior Zhuo isn't that kind of person. Said Lotus Sunday, but I just don't feel at ease. Ryoko had an anxious look on her face as she sighed. You haven't fallen in love yet, so you don't understand. Zhuo and I are just at the beginning of our relationship. It's normal to feel this way. After saying this, Ryoko was slow to realize that her words seemed to stab Lotus Sun's heart, and she hurriedly apologized. Sorry, Rongrong, I didn't mean to, it's fine. Lotus Sun smiled awkwardly. She felt her mouth turn sour, as if she had eaten a lemon slice. Everyone was in love, but it seemed like she was the only one who hadn't found a partner yet. Who knew when that log of wood in the Wang family would blossom, Rongrong? While Lotus Sun's imagination was running wild, Ryoko suddenly called out to her. Lotus Sun, Ryoko, let's go together. Lotus Sun, but we'll be in danger. Actually, Lotus Sun wasn't that afraid. She was mainly worried about Ryoko. And if they went together, she was afraid that her current strength would be exposed to Ryoko. Ryoko smiled. It's fine, I have Ghost Talisman. I have 100,000 ghost soldiers at my disposal. Of course, just the 2 of us won't be enough. So we have to get help. Looking for help? Lotus Sun had a bad feeling about this. Then she saw Ryoko quickly compose a text message on her cell phone. Lotus Sun, who are you sending it to? Ryoko, Senior Golden Lamp, of course. Lotus Sun, after a few seconds, Kamiya Ryoko suddenly smiled and said, yes. Done. Lotus Sun was shocked. Senior Golden Lamp, agreed? Ryoko, of course, because I was talking to him about getting rid of demons. I didn't mention anything about the illusory realm of nothingness. Lotus Sun, Ryoko, but Senior Golden Lamp also said that he needed to report this matter to be on the safe side. Then he went to grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. She didn't know why. After hearing Ryoko say this, Lotus Sun suddenly had an ominous premonition. She felt that the illusory realm of nothingness, it seemed very lively. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.